Chapter 1038. Dean Huangfu metes out the punishments. Deputy Dean Yin had lost his composure, his face darkened. Yun Chujio, I am punishing you according to the Academy's rules. You don't have to be so glib. You can leave Tianyuan Academy now. If you don't, I will have the guards remove you. Deputy Dean Yin, you keep mentioning the Academy's rules. I wonder where you were when those students were treated unfairly. Also, since they were acting according to the Academy's rules, how should Ma Xing and the others be dealt with for robbing the freshmen? Should they be expelled as well? A dog bit a person and the person chased the dog away. The dog was completely fine, but the person was beaten up by the dog's owner. How outrageous is that? Yun Chujio naturally knew that offending Deputy Dean Yin was not good for her. However, she had already offended the Yin siblings, so she did nothing else to lose. When the surrounding students and instructors saw Yun Chujio's heroic performance, they were all dumbfounded. That Yun Chujio was too bold. She dared to go against Deputy Dean Yin. How would she be punished for that behavior? She would probably be expelled for sure. The Yin siblings in the crowd sneered in their hearts. That Yun Chujio was really stupid. Their fourth grandfather had originally wanted to find an opportunity to deal with her, but he did not expect her to actually give him a chance to so easily. As long as she was expelled from Tianyuan Academy, the Yin family's secret guards would be able to kill her for their revenge. Men, expel Yun Chujio from the Tianyuan Academy. Deputy Dean Yin decided not to argue with Yun Chujio anymore. He ordered the guards to expel Yun Chujio. Feng Ming, the other two, and the people from the Huang class saw the situation and surrounded Yun Chujio. They shouted one after another, "You can't expel the class monitor. The class monitor is right. Why should the rabid dog that bites be fine, but the person who chased away the rabid dog have to be punished? This isn't fair. You're all rebelling. If you don't move, all of you will be expelled." Deputy Dean Yin threatened in anger. Feng Ming sneered, "So be it. We thought that the #1 academy in the Tianyuan continent was a sacred place. We didn't expect that they would allow the practice of such rotten behavior. They protected students who caused trouble and punished the victims instead. It's a reversal of right and wrong. There's no justice. We rather not study in such a crooked place." Gung Yi and Shi Xian also added from the side, "Right? This way there's no distinction between right and wrong. The academy that takes sides and engages in private affairs is no longer the Tianyuan Academy that we yearned for in our hearts. If you want to expel us, then go ahead." Some of the students from the Huang class also shouted out of anger, "We don't care either." Chapter 1039. Did you notice those knots? Ma Xing hugged Ma Minghua's thigh and cried out bitterly, "Uncle, I don't want to be expelled. Help me plead for mercy. Help me plead with Deputy Dean Yin. He will definitely let me stay." Ma Minghua was so angry that his face turned red. If it was not for this idiot, things would never have gotten to that point. However, the Ma family only had one son and they could not just stand by and watch him get expelled. Therefore, Ma Minghua looked at Deputy Dean Yin with pleading eyes. Deputy Dean Yin completely ignored Ma Minghua. His old face turned green and purple. He had never expected that Dean Huangfu would actually assert his authority in front of so many people. It felt like he was slapped in the face for incompetence. Dean Huangfu did not show any mercy at all. Not only did he overturn his decision, but he was also transferred from the disciplinary department. There was no comparison between the miscellaneous affairs department and the disciplinary department. After an investigation, Ma Minghua and Instructor Qi would definitely be fired. He could not help them at all. He was already fortunate that he was not implicated as a co-conspirator. Seeing that Ma Minghua had not finished speaking, Ma Xing knelt in front of Deputy Dean Yin and said, "Deputy Dean Yin, please help me. I don't want to be expelled." Deputy Dean Yin had nowhere to vent his anger, so he kicked Ma Xing and said, "Get lost." Deputy Dean Yin gave Ma Minghua and Instructor Qi a look of warning, then left angrily. The students of the Huang class immediately cheered. Cleaning the classroom for a month was nothing compared to receiving a demerit. After that incident, Yun Chujio's prestige in the Huang class grew even higher. Instructor Ji Sha was also able to stand up for them at the critical moment, so these students had a better impression of this sloppy instructor. While they cheered in the dean's study, an old man was talking to Dean Huangfu. "Dean, you've slapped Dean Haoyu in the face this time. Will he be angry from embarrassment?" Dean Haoyu's actions over the years have been getting more and more out of line. Originally, on account of his meritorious service to the Tianyuan Academy, I had turned a blind eye to it. However, he has become more and more impudent. He let the disciplinary department get involved in such a mess. Since the matter has become so big, we can use this opportunity to transfer him away from the disciplinary department. A crafty look flashed in Dean Huangfu's eyes. He was like an old fox. Dean, if you handle it this way, I'm afraid that Yin Haoyu will hate that little girl, and even Ji Sha might be implicated, the old man said with some worry. That little girl looks like she can take care of herself. It's not bad to let contend with Yin Haoyu. Watch over her secretly. I see that old Xiao and old Jiang seem to be paying more attention to that little girl. Don't worry, nothing will happen to her. The old man nodded. I heard that that little girl obtained first place in both rounds of the entrance test. In the third round of the test she even found the core of the array. In the fourth round of the test she was even more outrageous. She actually managed to obtain more than 100 jade tokens and even started a business. What a little weirdo. Her heavenly thunder root spirit was not wiped out by the Tian Dao. Naturally, she has her unique points. Ever since His Excellency and young Master Wuji graduated from the Tianyuan Academy, there have been no outstanding figures appearing. This Yun Chujio might be the next heaven's chosen. Dean, although that little girl is a little strange, she's only at the first level of the spirit sect now. Can she reach the level of His Excellency and young Master Wuji? Dean Huangfu smiled. I can't say in other aspects, but that little girl is shrewder than those two. Did you notice those knots? What's wrong with those knots? Aren't they used for hanging? The old man shook his head. The scene was so chaotic that he had not paid attention to those knots. Those knots are all live knots. The old man was left speechless. Chapter 1040. Spiritual Power Class. At this time, the sky had already turned dark. Yun Chujio brought the students of the Huang class back to the dormitory area. Early the next morning, the students of the Huang class had already been waiting at the entrance of Yun Chujio's courtyard. They waited for Yun Chujio to go to class together. Yun Chujio stretched her back and walked out of the courtyard. She followed the crowd and went to the classroom where the class was held. The first grades 4 classes were held separately. The Huang class classroom was also a little shabby compared to the other 3 classes. But fortunately, it was still clean and tidy enough to study in. The first grades classes were mostly classes related to spiritual energy. Only about 20% of the time was spent on the 5 arts of the cultivator class. The 5 arts of the cultivator class was an elective class, so the students were free to choose whether to attend or not. The first class was about spiritual power. When it was time, the instructor in charge walked in. Yun Chujio found the instructor familiar. She remembered that he was also there when Ma Minghua mocked Ji Sha yesterday. At that time he also looked like a villain. Like it tracks like after all. After the instructor came in, he only said that his surname was Zhou. Then he started to teach according to the textbook. After instructor Zhou hurriedly finished reading, he said, "All right, you guys can try to experience it on your own." Today the main topic was the materialization of spiritual power. Most of the students in the Huang class did not understand instructor Zhou's lesson. But when a student asked a question, Instructor Zhou answered impatiently and dismissed them with just a few words. Yun Chujio frowned. Are all the instructors of Tianyuan Academy like this? Or is Instructor Zhou that irresponsible? After the class, Instructor Zhou left in a hurry, not giving anyone the chance to ask questions. Class monitor, is it because our comprehension ability is too poor or something? Why can't I understand a thing he taught? That's right, class monitor. Instructor Zhou seems to dislike us. Is it because our aptitude is too poor? Class monitor, do you understand the contents of his lecture? Everyone please calm down. Let's listen to a few more lectures and before coming up with a conclusion. Yun Chujio frowned as she spoke. She did not understand much of the lesson either. She had never heard of some of the terms Instructor Zhou used before, so she had no idea what he meant. When everyone heard Yun Chujio's words, they could only decide to wait and see. They wanted to see if they could understand the contents of Instructor Zhou's class after a few more lessons. Instructor Zhou did not return to his courtyard after class. Instead, he went straight to Deputy Dean Yin's study room. "Dean, I followed your instructions." Those idiots were all confused and did not dare to ask further. When the mid-year competition comes, the students ranked in the bottom 50 will be eliminated. Let's see if that trash Ji Sha still has the face to continue staying in Tianyuan Academy. And that Yun Chujio. Her spiritual power is the lowest. If she can't solidify her spiritual power, then she will definitely be eliminated. Instructor Zhou deliberately omitted the word deputy. Deputy Dean Yin nodded. There was no joy or anger on his face. There is an 80 to 90% chance that Ma Minghua and Qi Qing will be removed from the academy. From now on you will be my right-hand man. I will not mistreat you. Dean, don't worry. Back then Jisha was also arrogant and went against you. Now he has fallen like a beggar, not to mention Yun Chujio. What can a little girl do? Sooner or later, Tianyuan Academy will be yours, Instructor Zhou said with a flattering look. Deputy Dean Yin snorted. That old fool Huangfu Zhongheng. If it weren't for me, Tianyuan Academy might have already been destroyed. Now he's putting on airs like the dean. He is detestable. If he doesn't show mercy, don't blame me for being unjust. Chapter 1041. Two bears fighting each other. The classes at Tianyuan Academy were arranged in such a way that students only studied in the morning, and in the afternoon, they had free time to do other activities. After her lunch in the canteen, Yun Chujio eagerly went to the Spirit Beast Garden. When Feng Ming's group and the other members of the Huang class said that they would accompany her, Yun Chujio waved her hands. You guys still need to clean up the classroom. I can do it myself. Besides, if you help me with my punishment, someone might voice their discontent. It's better for me to do it myself. Hearing her words, everyone had no choice but to give up. Yun Chujio hopped on to the Spirit Beast Garden. It was just in time for the third-year students' beast taming lesson. Yun Chujio could only wait at the side and listen to the class as it went on. Unlike the cultivators of the Azure Mystic Continent who only practiced 4 techniques, the people of the Tianyuan continent also learned an additional beast taming technique. However, beast taming techniques were very difficult to practice. Most people could only control some low-level demon beasts, which was equivalent to being of little value. Therefore, there were very few people who specialized in beast taming techniques. Many people only used beast taming techniques as a supplementary skill. The lowest level demon beasts in the Spirit Beast Garden of the Tianyuan Academy were 16th level demon beasts. These demon beasts already had intelligence and were very difficult to tame. Although these third-grade students had already learned beast taming techniques for 2 years, many still struggled. Fortunately, the majority of these students were at the 8th or 9th level of the spirit sect. Even if those demon beasts were to bite back, they would not be able to hurt them. It was just disheartening to see them unable to tame beasts much weaker than them. Today these students were trying to tame a level 16 demon beast, the barbaric bear. Although this barbaric bear did not have any spiritual attacks, it had boundless strength and was very tough to deal with. Many students failed to control it. Instead, they were chased around by the barbaric bear and were left in a sorry state at the end of the lessons. A rotund male student was forced out of the bear house by a barbaric bear. Moreover, the third-grade disciple's uniform was black. It looked as if 2 bears had fought each other. Yun Chujio could not help but laugh out loud. It was like she had poked a hornet's nest. That fatty was so embarrassed that he had no place to hide. When he heard Yun Chujio's laugh, he immediately became angry. You trash from the first level of the spirit sect, what are you laughing at? The fatty climbed up and roared angrily. Senior, I'm sorry. I didn't mean any harm. I just couldn't hold it. I'm sorry. Yun Chujio touched her nose. Although this fatty's words were not pleasant to hear, but she should not have laughed at others either, it was better to hold it in. However, the fatty was unwilling to let it go. Aren't you Yun Chujio from the first grade's trash class? Since you were punished to clean up the beast house, you should recognize your own flaws and get lost. If you anger me, it'll make you suffer. Yun Chujio's face fell. Senior, I couldn't hold back my laughter just now. It was indeed my fault, but I've already apologized to you, yet you still called me trash and said get lost. Don't you feel that you've gone too far? Moreover, I was preparing to clean the bear house. Because you were in class, I was waiting at the side. Please keep your mouth shut. The fatty curled his lips. Keep your mouth shut. You were originally trash who ascended from the Azure Mystic Continent. When did I say something wrong? You still dared to laugh at me? A country bumpkin like you probably don't even know what beast taming is? Country bumpkin. Yun Chujio was not a good-natured person to begin with. After she endured his tantrum for so long, this fatty was still unwilling to let her off. She was also angry. She curled her lips. Senior, since you said that, then don't blame me for being honest. The reason why I laughed just now was that I felt that it was too funny when 2 bears were fighting on the ground. Seniors, don't you all think so too? Yoon Chujio's words caused a wave of laughter from the crowd. In fact, they had also laughed just now. It was just that Fatty targeted Yoon Chujio because he felt she was weak. Chapter 1042. Don't you want to save your bare faces? When Fatty heard the laughter of the crowd, he got even angrier. You brat, you need to be taught a lesson. Just you wait, I won't forgive you. Woo-hing, don't make any noise during class. Yoon Chujio, wait over there first, don't interrupt our class. A middle-aged instructor saw that the matter was getting out of hand, so he spoke out to stop it. Seeing that the instructor had stepped in, Yoon Chujio nodded and went to the beast house to wait. That Fatty, although he gnashed his teeth in anger, he did not dare to disobey the instructor's commands, so he could only go back to paying attention to the class. After a while, Woo-heng and the others finished their beast-taming class. Before Woo-heng left, he fiercely glared at Yoon Chujio a few times, snorted coldly and left. Yoon Chujio pursed her lips and took out the token of the spirit beast garden and placed it in the groove outside the bear house. The 8 barbaric bears inside were then driven to the isolation area nearby. Yoon Chujio took out a self-made gas mask and put it on. Then she brought out her tools and began to clean the bear house. I didn't expect that Yoon Chujio would also become a poop-shoveling officer. Damn it, these stinky bears are too unhygienic. This place is so dirty. After Yoon Chujio cleaned up the bear house, she took out the dye and divided a few areas on the ground. She then placed her hands on her hips and said to the barbaric bears, "Fortunately, you guys are demon beasts with intelligence. Why are you so unhygienic? Haven't you guys always wanted to cultivate the great Tao and obtain human forms? You guys have to start training now. Have you ever seen a human being as sloppy as you guys? How can you sweep the world if you don't clean up after yourselves? If you can't even do a good job of animal hygiene, how can you talk about the road to immortality? I've already divided up the areas for you. There are drawings on them and it's clear at a glance. I'll come over the day after tomorrow to check. If you're still not doing what you're supposed to do, you'll go to the other beast houses and publicize your actions. Let's see if you'll lose face." The 8 barbaric bears looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with confusion. Where did this little freak come from? What the hell was she talking about? The bear tribe had always been like this. What the hell was hygiene? Yoon Chujio left the bear house. After removing the jade token, the 8 barbaric bears returned to the bear house. The bear house was cleaned very thoroughly and the ground was divided into 4 areas. One of them had a poop pattern drawn on it. That was obviously the defecation area. The other one had a chicken leg pattern on it indicating it was the dining area. The last one had a moon on it, so it should be the place to rest and sleep. The 8 barbaric bears looked at it and suddenly felt that it was not so bad like that. After all, they were only a few steps away from each other. It was not too troublesome and it was better than being mocked by other demon beasts. Yoon Chujio was assigned to clean 2 beast houses in total. Other than the barbaric bears beast house, there was also the vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes beast house. The vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes beast house was not far from barbaric bears beast house. When Yoon Chujio arrived at the beast house, she saw more than 20 vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes inside. They all had long red beaks, snow-white feathers and arrogant postures. The vermilion-beaked long-feather crane was known to be a proud creature. However, its habit of excreting anywhere on the ground was not that good. The beast house was very dirty and in a messy state. Yoon Chujio could not help but wonder if the instructor who arranged the work for her intentionally gave her these tasks. Why were all the beast house she had to clean so dirty? Yoon Chujio placed the jade token on the groove outside the beast house. The vermilion-beaked long feather crane were driven to the isolation area. Yoon Chujio still put on the gas mask and began to clean the beast house. They ate all the food that had been added with Yoon Chujio's seasoning. After a while Yoon Chujio returned. When she saw more than 20 vermilion-beaked long feather cranes lay asleep on the ground, she smiled sinisterly. Yoon Chujio walked into the beast house and kicked a few of the vermilion-beaked long feather cranes. As expected, there was no reaction. Therefore she reached out her evil paws and plucked off the tail feathers of more than 20 vermilion-beaked long feather cranes. The vermilion-beaked long feather crane instantly became vermilion-beaked bare-bottomed cranes. Yoon Chujio looked at the bare-bottomed cranes on the ground and the corners of her mouth curled up. "Little guys, aren't you all showing off the wrong things? Let's see if you still have the face to act arrogantly next time." Yun Chujio stored all the incriminating evidence on the ground in her storage ring. Then she retreated outside the beast house and hugged her shoulders, waiting for the vermilion-beaked long feather cranes to wake up. Not long after, the vermilion-beaked long feather cranes woke up. They looked at each other in confusion, then turned their heads to look behind them. Immediately they cried out in fear. The thing the vermilion-beaked long feather cranes were most proud of was the long feathers on their tails. They did not expect for them to be all gone. Gone, all gone. Where did their tail feathers go? Why had they disappeared when they woke up? Just as the flock of cranes panicked, they heard a little girl say with a smile, "Io, are you guys preparing to run around naked? You're really shameless birds. You actually exposed your buttocks. Hey, you're all too shameless." Chapter 1044. A Little Devil in Disguise. The vermilion-beaked long feather cranes immediately understood that all of this was done by that little brat. Immediately they began to call out crazily and pounce on the railings of the beast house. Yun Chujio curled her lips. "Not only are you shameless but you're also brainless. There's a formation here so you can't do anything to me. Naked cranes, ha, you're so ugly." The cranes were about to go crazy from anger, but even though they pounced on the railing angrily, they had no way of getting out of the beast house. As Yun Chujio winked at them, they got so angry that the cranes were about to faint. "Naked cranes, I'm warning you. If you don't follow my instructions and make use of the regions I marked out on the ground, next time you won't only lose the hair on your tails. I'll make sure there isn't a single feather left on your body. If you don't believe I'll do it, you're welcome to try your luck," Yun Chujio said with a smile. The cranes cried out in anger, trying to attract the instructors who were in charge of the spirit beast garden. Yun Chujio curled her lips. "Don't waste your effort. I've already asked around. Those instructors won't be here today, so it's useless even if you scream your lungs out. Moreover, even if you complain, your tail feathers won't come back. If you dare to complain, not only will I pluck all your feathers, I'll also draw a few extra decorations on you." Shameless. Too shameless. The cranes had never seen such a shameless person. Although they had intelligence, how could they compare to Yun Chujio, who was full of evil schemes? They were actually scared and let out a few angry cries. They no longer used their wings to hit the railings. Yun Chujio saw that the crane group had quieted down, then she said with a smile, "That's right. Let's discuss this like intelligent beings. We can talk about anything. Besides, I'm doing this for your own good. Being clean will also help your cultivation, right? Otherwise, wouldn't there be no difference between intelligent birds like you and the mindless birds on the outside?" The cranes did not say a word. At this moment, their hearts were on the verge of breaking down. They originally thought that that good-for-nothing person was easy to bully. They did not expect that she was actually a little devil in disguise. After Yun Chujio lectured them, only then did she say, "I've said everything that needs to be said. I'll come back the day after tomorrow to check again. If all of you are still dirty and messing the place up, I'll keep my word and let all of you run around naked. Don't think that the academy will expel me just because all of you went to complain to your instructors. Even if I'm expelled, I still have a way to make all of you run around naked before I leave." The cranes remained silent. They only used their eyes to express the anger and discontent in their hearts. Yun Chujio waved her hands with a smile. "Little birdies, I'm leaving. I'll see you the day after tomorrow." The cranes watched Yun Chujio skip away and wished they could rush out of the beast house and kill her. Unfortunately, they were powerless and could not do a thing. The next day there happened a third-grade beast taming class. Those students found that the cranes had all obediently laid down with their necks facing outward, drooping their heads and closing their eyes to rest. Wu Heng, the fatty, saw that those vermilion-beaked long feather cranes were very obedient today and wanted to show off. So he took the initiative to propose to enter the beast house to practice his beast taming technique. Instructor Qian, who was in charge of the class, readily agreed. After opening the gap in the array, Wu Heng walked in, picked a smaller vermilion-beaked long feather crane, and began to use the beast taming technique. The crane group was already filled with anger, but now that that damn fatty actually came in to find trouble, they immediately vented all their frustration and anger on Wu Heng. "But we can't take care of that little devil, so you'll have to peck him to death." The crane group swarmed forward and pecked at Wu Heng. Chapter 1045. The unlucky Wu Heng, whether it was Wu Heng or those students or Instructor Qian, none of them had expected the cranes to suddenly attack. The level of spiritual power of these cranes was much lower than those of the students. Occasionally, one or two of them would bite back when they were being controlled, but most of the time they were relatively docile. By the time Instructor Qian and the students reacted, Wu Heng had already been pecked until his body was a bloody mess. Everyone hurriedly ordered the cranes to retreat and rescue Wu Heng. Although the unlucky Wu Heng's life was not in danger, his injuries were still substantial. The fury that the flock of cranes had held in for the entire night was vented on Wu Heng. After a flurry of activity, everyone realized that the tail feathers of the vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes had all disappeared. When the vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes noticed the astonished gazes of everyone, they became even more ashamed and indignant. They flapped their wings angrily and still wanted to peck Wu Heng. It was all that damn fatty's fault. If he had not insisted on coming in, their secret would not have been discovered by these people. Peck him to death. The crowd hurriedly retreated from the beast house. Some students said, "Why are the tail feathers of these vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes missing? Could it be that they are collectively changing their feathers?" "Forget it. I've never heard of these birds changing their tail feathers." "Then why are the tail feathers of these vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes missing? Could it be related to Wu Heng? Otherwise, why would those vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes attack him so crazily?" "What you said makes sense. These vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes are usually the most docile. It's impossible for them to attack him for no reason. Even if he didn't capture them, it's probably related to him. I heard that Wu Heng's uncle, Instructor Wu, is in charge of the beast house. Could it be that Instructor Wu did it? Is that why these vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes attacked Wu Heng? How is that possible? The vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes don't know that Wu Heng is Instructor Wu's nephew." Just as everyone discussed what they have just seen, a middle-aged instructor rushed over. Henger. How are you?" It was Instructor Wu. When he saw the injured Wu Heng on the ground, he immediately flew into a rage. "Instructor Qian, what's going on? How did Henger get injured?" "Instructor Wu, just now when Wu Heng was practicing the beast-taming art, the cranes suddenly launched an attack. Usually the cranes are very docile. We didn't react for a moment due to the shock of what just happened." Instructor Qian sneered in his heart. "You are the instructor in charge of the beast house. What kind of questions are you asking? Coming with the intention to interrogate us like it was our fault. How could the cranes attack people for no reason? Maybe it was you two who did this." Instructor Wu's gaze was directed at the cranes. The cranes retreated in fear. After they retreated to the living area that Yun Chuju drew for them, they lay on the ground and looked at the crowd. Only then did Instructor Wu realize that the tail feathers of the cranes were gone. He frowned. "Why are the tail feathers of these vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes gone?" Instructor Qian said indifferently, "They were already like this when we came here. Could it be that it wasn't done by your spirit beast garden staff? How could we possibly pull off their tail feathers without getting hurt by the cranes? This matter must be thoroughly investigated. We must find out who was so lacking in morals that they pulled off the tail feathers of the cranes." Instructor Wu had blamed the person who pulled off the tail feathers for his nephew's injury. Instructor Wu immediately gathered all the instructors and handymen from the Spirit Beast Garden. After a quick investigation, they immediately found out that it was Yun Chujio. At that time, Wu Heng had already woken up. He immediately shouted, "Uncle, that Yun Chujio laughed at me a few days ago. She must have done it on purpose. She is deliberately taking revenge on me." Chapter 1046. Who did it? Instructor Wu's face darkened even more when he heard that. "Henger, Uncle will definitely bring you justice. That Yun Chujio is too audacious. She dared to openly harm the Academy's spirit beasts. Uncle will immediately send someone to report her to the disciplinary department." After Instructor Wu finished counseling his nephew, he sent an instructor to the disciplinary department. Those third-year students and Instructor Qian did not leave either. Firstly, their class had not yet ended. Secondly, they were also somewhat curious. Could it really be Yun Chujio? If it was, then that she was too bold. She dared to pluck the tail feathers of those vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes? Those vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes were demonic beasts of the 16th level, and she was only at the first level of the spirit sect. How did she do it without getting hurt? Yun Chujio had been busy eating in the canteen. It was rare for her to be so generous as to bring out 2 roast chickens and give them to Feng Ming and the other 2. Just as the 4 of them were chatted and laughed, their identity jade plates started to tremble. After Yun Chujio sent her divine sense in, the corners of her lips curled up. Senior brothers, you guys eat first. I'm going to the Spirit Beast Garden. The Spirit Beast Garden? Haven't you already done the cleaning for today? What are you going there to do now? Feng Ming and the other 2 asked in puzzlement. It's nothing. Going to watch a show. We'll be back in a while. Yun Chujio said indifferently and then skipped away. Feng Ming and the other 2 looked puzzled. Watch a show? What kind of show was there in the Spirit Beast Garden? When Yun Chujio hopped into the Spirit Beast Garden, everyone's eyes were focused on her. Wu Heng's body was bandaged like a mummy. He shouted angrily, Yun Chujio. You plucked the tail feathers of those vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes. Just wait to be expelled. Yun Chujio pouted, what tail feathers? What a mess, what are you talking about? And are you very cold? Why are there so many strips of cloth wrapped around your body? Wu Heng was so angry that he almost jumped up. Stupid girl. If you hadn't plucked the tail feathers of the cranes, would the cranes have taken revenge on me? You openly hurt the demonic beasts in the Spirit Beast Park. You will definitely be expelled. What? The tail feathers of the cranes were plucked? Let me see. Who did it? Yun Chujio shouted as she ran to the railing of the vermilion-beaked long-feather crane's beast house. Io. Who did this? That person is too bold. How did he do it? Were these vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes were just waiting for their feathers to be taken away? Oh my god, the feathers on their buttocks are gone. How are these vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes going to live now? They are the noble birds that treasure their reputation the most. It's really embarrassing to lose their tail feathers. Fortunately, only their tail feathers have been plucked. If the rest of their feathers were plucked too, they would die of embarrassment. Yun Chujio glared at the vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes as if she warned them to keep their beaks shut. The cranes felt an inexplicable chill on their bodies and quickly used their wide wings to protect their bodies. They were afraid that Yun Chujio would really jump in and pluck the rest of their feathers. When the crowd heard Yun Chujio's words, they felt a little uncertain. Yun Chujio clearly had a surprised tone and did not seem to be guilty at all. She probably really did not do it. She could not have dealt with so many vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes alone, let alone pluck their feathers. Yun Chujio. Don't be so hypocritical. You were the one who cleaned up the vermilion-beaked long-feather crane's beast house yesterday. If you didn't do it, then who did it? Wu Heng said angrily. Yun Chujio spread her hands. I cleaned up the beast house yesterday, but the birds were still fine when I left. Who knows how it turned out like this? I'm only in charge of cleaning up, not solving mysteries. If you're asking me, then who should I ask? Chapter 1047. Are you preparing to punish your family too? Wu Heng was rendered speechless. Instructor Wu snorted coldly. Yun Chujio, although you are eloquent, you can't escape the blame. Since yesterday, you're the only one that entered the crane's beast house. If you didn't do it, then who did? Instructor Yuan, what punishment would one receive for openly harming the Academy's spirit beast? If that's the case, then the student would be expelled, said Instructor Yuan from the disciplinary department. Because of Yun Chujio's previous performance, his words were rather strict, as he was afraid of being caught by Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio glanced at Instructor Wu. Instructor, you have to be responsible for your words. What do you mean by saying that if it wasn't me, then who did it? Could it be that I have already been labeled a criminal? I have no enmity towards those vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes. Why should I pluck out their tail feathers? Those tail feathers cannot be eaten or sold. What's the point of plucking them? When the vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes heard Yun Chujio lying through her teeth, they were so angry that they started to twitch. However, when they recalled Yun Chujio's warning just now, they did not dare to do anything. They lowered their heads and did not make a sound. Instructor Wu was stunned by Yun Chujio's retort. He said angrily, if you didn't pluck them out, where did the tail feathers of these vermilion-beaked cranes go? Yun Chujio spread her hands. How would I know if you ask me? Perhaps they felt that it was too hot, so they pecked each other's feathers off. It was also possible that some people were trying to slack off. Although the tail feathers did not have any other uses, they could still be used as fans. Some people were so fat so they would need a lot of feathers to fan themselves. Otherwise, why would the cranes attack that person for no reason? Why didn't the cranes attack the others? The vermilion-beaked long feather cranes were so angry that they were on the verge of collapse. Feeling too hot. Did we peck each other's feathers off? It's not like we have a problem with our brains. This little girl's words were too sarcastic. The onlookers felt that the second possibility that Yun Chujio mentioned was more likely. Yes, if it was not Wu Heng who did it, why did the cranes attack him? Moreover, he also had an advantage over the others. He might have accessed the beast houses with his uncle's help. Wu Heng saw the suspicious gazes of the crowd and cursed angrily, "Stupid girl, you're spouting nonsense. Even if I were to make a fan, I wouldn't need to use the tail feathers of a vermilion-beaked long feather crane. I can just use the feathers of a sharp-billed crested ibis." As soon as Wu Heng said this, he knew that he had spoken too much. Instructor Wu had often taken some materials from demonic beasts, especially feathers and the like. In the past, he had given Wu Heng a fan made of the feathers of the sharp-billed crested ibis. However, there was no room for him to take back his words. Everyone immediately made the connection. Instructor Wu was so angry that he wanted to slap Wu Heng to death, that idiot. How could Yun Chujio let go of such a good opportunity? She immediately clapped her hands. "Ha! Did you just admit to your crime? Since you admitted to plucking the feathers of the sharp-billed crested ibis, the tail feathers of the vermilion-beaked long feather cranes must have also been plucked by you. Although I don't know what you used it for, it must have been done by a habitual criminal like you. Instructor Yuan, quickly expel this Wu Heng. Instructor Wu is a righteous person. He actually reported his nephew personally. It's really admirable. How could Wu Heng beat Yun Chujio in a war of words? He was dragged in by Yun Chujio with just a few words. Instructor Wu glanced at Yun Chujio sinisterly. Yun Chujio, you don't have to be so glib. You're the biggest suspect. Who plucked the tail feathers of these vermilion-beaked long feather cranes? These vermilion-beaked long feather cranes will be the ones to tell us. I'll ask the vermilion-beaked long feather cranes now and see how you get out of this. Chapter 1048. The cranes testify. Yun Chujio spread her hands. Then let's ask. It's just that some people shouldn't shoot themselves in the foot. What if these vermilion-beaked long feather cranes testify that it was your nephew who did it? When the time comes, are you also going to punish your own family, or are you going to cry and beg for mercy for him? Instructor Wu was a little uncertain after he heard Yun Chujio's words. He looked at Wu Heng suspiciously and Wu Heng shouted, "Uncle, I really didn't do it. Just ask the birds." Instructor Wu then walked to the railing of the vermilion-beaked long feather crane beast house. "Who plucked your tail feathers? Was it Yun Chujio?" Instructor Wu pointed at Yun Chujio with his finger. Yun Chujio curled her lips. "Instructor Wu, your question is misleading. However, I believe that such a noble bird like the vermilion-beaked long feather crane will tell the truth. Do you think that I pulled out your beautiful tail feathers?" Yun Chujio looked at the vermilion-beaked long feather cranes with a wry smile. As she asked, she touched her hair with her hand. The vermilion-beaked long feather cranes trembled. At that moment their hearts were in a dilemma. Of course they wished that Yun Chujio would be punished. However, when they recalled Yun Chujio's warning, even if she were expelled she would still have a way to get rid of their feathers. If they really lost all their feathers they would lose the will to live. The cranes finally decided to give up. After all, their tail feathers would grow again in a few days. They should not offend that little devil. She was too evil. They only provoked her for a little and she had already plucked all their tail feathers. If they reported her she would definitely not let them off. The cranes looked at each other and shook their heads like a rattle drum, denying that Yun Chujio was the one who plucked the tail feathers. Yun Chujio clapped her hands. "Did everyone see that? I told you I was innocent, right? How could a kind person like me pluck their tail feathers? Instructor Wu, why don't you ask the cranes if these tail feathers were plucked by your nephew? Why then would these beautiful and noble birds attack Wu Heng for no reason? He must have done something wicked." Everyone's gaze focused on the Wu uncle and nephew duo. All suspicion on Yun Chujio had already been cleared, so the biggest suspect by then was Wu Heng. Instructor Wu was also uncertain. He had indeed given him the jade token from the beast house to facilitate his beast taming practice. Could it really be Henger's doing? Wu Heng raised his neck. "Uncle, feel free to ask. I didn't even come to the spirit beast garden last night, let alone pluck the tail feathers of these vermilion-beaked long feather cranes." Instructor Wu heard Wu Heng's words, and to show that he was impartial, he asked the flock of cranes, "Did Wu Heng pluck your tail feathers?" Yun Chujio, who stood at the side, said with a smile, "Wu Heng is the fatty that you pecked with your beaks just now. Did he pluck your tail feathers? Otherwise, why did you attack him? I believe that such noble birds like you would not attack people for no reason. There must be a reason." The crane group pondered the meaning of Yun Chujio's words in confusion. Why did they feel that the little devil wanted them to testify against the fatty? However, that fatty was clearly a detestable person anyway. He dared to attempt to command them around like a pet. Since they could not peck him to death, it was good enough to be able to frame him. It was the right time to punish him for his arrogance. Hence, the crane group immediately nodded non-stop and even cried out angrily. Yun Chujio sighed. "Instructor Wu, now it's become hard to deal with. Will you punish your family? Or will you let him go due to his relationship with you?" Everyone's gaze immediately turned towards Instructor Wu. He then realized that had just shot himself in the foot. Everyone waited to see what he would do. Chapter 1049. Apologized to the cranes. Before Instructor Wu could say anything, Wu Heng ignored the pain in his body and ran to the crane house's beast pen and pointed at the cranes. "Are you all stupid? When did I pluck out your tail feathers? It was clearly that damned girl who did it. Why are you framing me?" The cranes were also capable of bullying others. Moreover, Yun Chujio had just said that they were noble birds, yet this damn fatty had called them stupid birds. His behavior was too detestable. The cranes cried out in anger and pounced on the side of the railing. They kept using their wings and long beaks to attack Wu Heng. At that time, the people who watched were certain that Wu Heng must have plucked the tail feathers of the flock of cranes. Even Instructor Wu was uncertain. Those tail feathers were most likely plucked by Heng. "That idiot, just admit you plucked them. What are you quarreling about?" "This is great, so many people know about this now, so how can I protect you?" "Uncle, I didn't do it. I was in the dormitory yesterday afternoon." Wu Heng was so upset that he wanted to throw up blood. "I have never been to the crane's dormitory. How could it be that I plucked the tail feathers?" Instructor Wu was about to cry from his nephew's stupidity. "In the dormitory? If that's the case, will there be anyone that can testify for you? Even if you want to find someone to perjure your testimony for you, there's no way." Instructor Wu's forehead was dripped with sweat. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, and he had even called the disciplinary department's instructor over. How was he going to end things now? Could it be that he was going to get Henger expelled from Tianyuan Academy? Instructor Yuan from the disciplinary department coughed and said, "Instructor Wu, right now Wu Heng's chances don't look very good. If we can't find any evidence, then we can only expel him according to the school rules." This, Instructor Yuan, this matter should be a misunderstanding. Henger wouldn't do such a ridiculous thing, Instructor Wu said with a smile. Instructor Yuan sneered in his heart, "Misunderstanding? The crane group had pointed out that it was your nephew who pulled out their tail feathers. Otherwise, how could they be so angry?" Instructor Wu saw that Instructor Yuan did not speak and he grew even more anxious. "What should I do? Could it be that I have to go beg Deputy Dean Yin? I have something that I don't know whether to say or not." Yun Chujio weakly raised her small hands. Instructor Wu said unhappily, "What do you mean? Speak." Although it's wrong for Wu Heng to pluck the tail feathers of the cranes, they have already punished him. Moreover, plucking tail feathers doesn't count as harming the spirit beast. After all, the tail feathers can still regrow eventually. Just let Wu Heng apologize to the cranes and forget about this matter. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and said in a diplomatic tone. Instructor Wu never thought that Yun Chujio would plead for mercy for Wu Heng. However, he did not have the time to think about Yun Chujio's motives now. He quickly followed Yun Chujio's lead and said, "Instructor Yuan, what Yun Chujio said makes sense. The tail feathers of the vermilion-beaked long feather crane can regrow. After some time they will grow back again. Moreover, Henger has already been punished. If Henger apologizes to the cranes, let's forget about this matter." Instructor Yuan's expression darkened slightly. "Instructor Wu, the disciplinary department isn't your personal attack dogs. We're not people who can just come and go as you please. Don't make such jokes again next time." Instructor Wu knew he was in the wrong. With a smile, he said a lot of nice things to Instructor Yuan to placate him. Then he said to Wu Heng, "Henger, why aren't you apologizing to the cranes? Just apologize and this matter will be over." Wu Heng's heart was like a raging river. He clearly did not do anything, so why was he blamed? Who had he offended? Not only did he get injured, but he also had to apologize to the cranes. He even gained the reputation of being a fucking feather thief. Chapter 1050. Master, why are you so kind? Wu Heng wanted to argue further, but Instructor Wu glared at him. Quickly apologize. Otherwise, I'll immediately write a letter to your father. Wu Heng was immediately terrified. He could only walk to the front of the crane shed and apologize reluctantly. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have plucked your tail feathers. The cranes were originally angry. Now that the damn fatty had apologized, they returned to the resting area that Yun Chujio had drawn and lay down, no longer paying any attention to the people outside. Instructor Wu quickly laughed. It seems the cranes have decided to let this matter go, then let's also just forget about it. Instructor Yuan, Instructor Qian, it's my fault for being rash. I'll treat you someday and apologize to the two of you. Instructor Yuan and Instructor Qian exchanged a few words of courtesy and laughed coldly in their hearts. This Instructor Wu was thick-skinned enough to brazenly protect his nephew. He had probably used his power for personal gain many times. However, he was Deputy Dean Yin's lackey. It was better for them not to get on his bad side. Cough cough. Instructors, if there's nothing else, I'll be leaving. Although the feeling of being wronged is very unpleasant, fortunately I was cleared of suspicion in the end. Otherwise, I would really have taken the injustice to my grave. Yun Chujio said with a sigh. Instructor Wu opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he did not know what to say. He could only watch as Yun Chujio hopped away. The third-grade students went to other beast houses and left the Spirit Beast Garden after class. Only Instructor Wu stayed behind. Uncle, I really didn't pluck the tail feathers of those cranes. Wu Heng swore. If you didn't, why would they have hated you so much? Instructor Wu glared at him and said. Wu Heng said aggrievedly, how would I know? In any case, I really didn't do it. I think it's most likely that Yun Chujio did it. Instructor Wu frowned. No matter what, if it wasn't for Yun Chujio's quick thinking, it wouldn't have ended well for you today. Don't find trouble with her anymore. That little girl is too scheming. You can't beat her. Wu Heng reluctantly agreed, but he did not think much of it in his heart. Humph, she must have felt guilty to be involved in the first place. She must have plucked the tail feathers of the cranes. He would find an opportunity to teach her a lesson. At that time, Yun Chujio had hopped back into the dormitory. Little Blackbird asked in confusion, Master, why did you help Wu Heng? When did you become so kind? I am Master Bird, am not that kind. It's just that if they investigated further, the culprit will inevitably be found out. This is the best ending. Moreover, it also gave me a good reputation of being kind and magnanimous, so why not? Yun Chujio said with a smile. Little Blackbird curled its lips. It knew that their master's heart was black. How could she suddenly have become a white lotus? After Yun Chujio cleaned the beast houses for a few days, some instructors and handymen in the Spirit Beast Garden discovered that the beast houses of the violent barbaric bear and the vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes were very neat. The demonic beasts were all moving in fixed areas and were very obedient. Someone reported the matter to Instructor Wu. After Instructor Wu checked it out, he asked everyone to learn how to do the same in other demonic beast areas. Unfortunately, the effect was not as they expected. Those other demonic beasts did not listen to them at all. Yun Chujio's chaotic academy life became more and more peaceful. The students of the Huang class listened to her every word. Every day after she attended classes and cleaned the Spirit Beast Garden, she worked hard to cultivate. She deeply felt that being seen as a weakling would not be a good thing in the long run. We want to use these 3 days to digest the contents of our recent spiritual power lessons. We don't quite understand it, Feng Ming said with a slight blush. He had always thought that his aptitude was not bad in the Azure Mystic continent. However, when he arrived at the Tianyuan continent, he was repeatedly dumbstruck. If it was not for junior sister Little Geo, he would not have been able to enter the Tianyuan Academy. Actually, it's not just the three of us who don't understand him. The vast majority of people from the Huang class don't understand either. I feel that Instructor Zhou is intentionally doing this, Shi Xian said from the side. Geng Yi also echoed, yes, junior sister Little Geo, do you understand his lessons? I can barely understand most of it. It's not a problem with us, it's definitely him. Don't worry, I will get rid of Instructor Zhou very soon. Yun Chujio said confidently. Feng Ming and the other two knew that Yun Chujio had many evil schemes, so they did not ask further. After bidding farewell to the three of them, Yun Chujio left the Tianyuan Academy and went to Long Wind Inn. Miss Zhou, everything is normal in the Azure Mystic Continent. This is a letter from Old Master Yun to you, and Feng handed Yun Chujio a letter. Yun Chujio took the letter and read it. It contained Yun Xiaoshan's words of concern and advice for her. Her heart felt warm and it felt good to have a family member care about her. Little madman, where is the thing I asked about? Yun Chujio stretched out her hand and asked in Feng. Chapter 1052 She's too evil. And Feng handed two things to Yun Chujio and asked curiously, Miss Zhou, what do you want this recording stone and irritant powder for? Instructor Zhou, who is our spiritual power instructor, is obviously teaching us badly on purpose. I have to seize strong evidence to expose him away and change him to a responsible and competent instructor. Yun Chujio's eyes flashed with a trace of sternness. If you dare to fool me, I will make you suffer the consequences. And Feng lit a candle in his heart for Instructor Zhou. This Miss Zhou of theirs can never be fooled. You actually dared to play tricks in front of her. You are simply courting death. Yun Chujio asked in Feng some more questions before she activated the isolation array and began to refine some pills. Although In Feng had already witnessed Yun Chujio's abnormal pill refinement methods, he still felt a shock in his heart when he saw it again. Damn, Miss Zhou was truly abnormal. She made pill refinement seem like a children's game. The main reason was that the pills that she refined were all super-grade pills, and the success rate was 100%. It was really scary. Yun Chujio stayed in her room to refine pills for 2 days and 2 nights. Then she handed a few large basins of pills to In Feng and asked him to pass them to Yu Hai of the Thunder Sect. Shopkeeper Chi paced around outside a few times. He was puzzled. What was this Miss Zhou and In Feng doing in the room? Why did they activate the isolation array? Was it to guard against him? Finally, upon seeing Yun Chujio come out of the room, Shopkeeper Chi pretended to have just arrived and asked, Miss Zhou, do you have any orders for me? Yun Chujio glanced at the messy footprints on the ground and said with a smile, Shopkeeper Chi, you are really thoughtful. You don't have to stand guard for me next time. Shopkeeper Chi's old face turned red, but he was old and cunning. He laughed and said, Miss Zhou, I haven't seen you for a long time. I'm anxious to ask if you need any help. Did everything go smoothly in Tianyuan Academy? Not bad. I just accidentally made some noise, Yun Chujio said and left with a yawn. Shopkeeper Chi looked at Yun Chujio's back and asked In Feng, Commander In Feng, what noise did Miss Zhou make? In Feng's eyes twitched. Well, Miss Zhou led the students of the Huang class to beat up dozens of people from the second-grade Tian class. Then she ran to the gate of the disciplinary department to attempt to hang herself. Shopkeeper Chi staggered and almost fell to the ground. What? How was that some noise? Miss Zhou, will you turn Tianyuan Academy upside down? Commander In Feng, how did the Miss Zhou get assigned to the Huang class with her results? Wasn't the Huang class not set up for many years? Shopkeeper Chi came back to his senses and said, I guess they found out about Miss Zhou selling jade tokens in the 4th round of the test, so she was sent to the Huang class, and Feng guessed. Then how did she become the class monitor? Why did she gang up on the second-year students of the Tian class? Why did she go to the disciplinary department to hang herself? She caused such a big fuss but nothing happened? Didn't they say that Tianyuan Academy has strict rules? Shopkeeper Chi was full of questions. Looking at Miss Zhou's appearance, she seemed like she had not received any punishments at all. How was that possible? And Feng rambled on about what Yun Chujio had told him earlier. Yun Chujio was such a freak. While refining pills, she told In Feng about what had happened recently. Shopkeeper Chi was stunned when he heard everything. His mouth did not close for a long time. Oh God, this Miss Zhou was too much of a devil. She had almost messed up half of Tianyuan Academy. What was even worse was that she was only punished to clean the beast house for a month after causing such a huge commotion. How on earth did she do that? When did Tianyuan Academy become so lenient? Chapter 1053. The Pretty Boy's Subordinate Ahem. Shopkeeper Chi, Miss Zhou also did something just a few days ago. She plucked out the tail feathers of more than 20 vermilion-beaked long feather cranes in the spirit beast garden of Tianyuan Academy. And Feng forced a smile and said, "What the hell? Why did she pluck out their tail feathers for no reason?" Shopkeeper Qi felt that his worldview had been severely impacted. And Feng recounted what had happened in the spirit beast garden. Shopkeeper Qi felt that he was well-rounded and could talk his way out of a lot of situations. However, now that he saw that he could not even reach 1/10 of that little girl's level. She had managed to forcefully push the blame onto someone else and even pretended to be an innocent party. Moreover, the most important thing was that that little girl was really vengeful. She'd strike back even over the smallest grievance. Shopkeeper Qi thought about those naked vermilion-beaked long feather cranes and made up his mind. In the future, no matter what he said, he could not offend this little girl. She had too many schemes in her mind. Moreover, she was pure evil. Most importantly, she was good at distorting black and white. She was too much of a freak. Yun Chujio, who had walked towards Tianyuan Academy, sneezed a few times. She thought that Shopkeeper Qi and Enfeng must be whispering about her. These two loose-lipped men. Just as Yun Chujio cursed in her heart, she realized that there were people following her from behind. Yun Chujio used a small mirror in her sleeve to look behind her. She saw about 10 people following her from a distance. Although they were dressed in the same way as pedestrians, it was obvious that their eyes were focused on her. If Yun Chujio was fast, they would keep up with her. If Yun Chujio slowed down, they also would slow down. There was a dense forest not far ahead. They would probably make a move there. Yun Chujio rolled her eyes and activated a concealment talisman. The people behind her were instantly dumbfounded. Where was she? She was clearly in front of them just now. How could she disappear in such a short while? A concealment talisman. That wretched girl must have activated a concealment talisman. She did not expect that she would have such a good thing. It must have been given to her by the palace mistress. The leader, Scarface, looked around for fluctuations in spiritual power when he was suddenly staggered, after which purple lightning bolts struck him one after another. Scarface did not expect that he would stumble for no reason. Caught off guard, although he managed to avoid the vital parts, he was still struck by Yun Chujio's lightning strike on his left shoulder. Scarface let out a miserable cry and directed several wind blades towards the spiritual power fluctuation. Yun Chujio had already dodged. Just as she was about to continue her attacks, several black-clothed men suddenly appeared from not far away and started to beat up the 10 or so people. The spiritual power of the men in black was much higher than the 10 men that followed her. In less than 15 minutes, the men who followed her were imprisoned on the spot and were beaten until their faces were swollen. "Miss Jiu, your subordinate came late. Please forgive me." After the men in black imprisoned Scarface and the others, they knelt and apologized. Only then did Yun Chujio remove the concealment talisman and reveal herself. From the looks of it, these men in black were the pretty boy's subordinates. It had to be said that he was quite good at disciplining his subordinates. "Bring these people into the forest ahead. I'll interrogate them." Yun Chujio waved her hand to signal for them to stand up. She cursed in her heart, "Damn it, if only I had known that the pretty boy had sent secret guards to protect me, I wouldn't have been so cowardly." The secret guards of the Hall of Longevity brought Scarface and the others into the forest ahead. Yun Chujio raised her large kitchen knife and chopped one of them to death. Then she took out a token from that person's storage bag. In front of it was a name, on the back was the character Een. Chapter 1054. Miss Jo had grown more ruthless. The Een family? Yun Chujio's eyes flashed with a fierce light. The Een family had acted rather quickly. She did not know if these men were sent on the Een siblings or Deputy Dean Een's orders. The secret guards of the Hall of Longevity had once followed Di Biming to the League of Assassins base to rescue Yun Chujio. At that time they were shocked by Yun Chujio's abnormal behavior. Now they saw that Yun Chujio had killed one of them without asking a single question. They thought to themselves that Miss Jo had grown more ruthless since that time. Scarface and the others saw that Yun Chujio did not have any intention of asking for a confession and was actually planning to kill them all. They immediately begged for their lives. "Fairy, spare us. Spare us. We were only ordered by someone. We were forced to do so." Yun Chujio wanted this kind of effect. She looked at Scarface coldly. "Speak. If I am satisfied with what you have said, I will spare you. Otherwise I will kill you one by one. I'll speak. I'll speak. We are the Yin clan's second branch's secret guards. This time we followed our young master Yin Xuecheng to Tianyuan Academy to apply and study there. After our young master entered the academy, he made us stay in Vigor City. Yesterday our young master sent us a letter, asking us to capture you and sell you to Itsue Tower. To save his life, Scarface spilled everything. Where's the letter? I burned it after reading it. Yun Chujio gave the secret guards of the Hall of Longevity a look. One of the secret guards hit Scarface and the others in the neck, which rendered them unconscious. Find a place to lock them up. Maybe they will be useful in the future, Yun Chujio said lightly. Yin Xuecheng? Since you are so eager to die, I will find an opportunity to send you on your way. When I was in the Azure Mystic Continent, I was too worried and could not kill Zhuo Piaoyu in time and almost caused a disaster. This time I must learn my lesson. The secret guards of the Hall of Longevity split into two. One group escorted Scarface and the others away, while the other group secretly escorted Yun Chujio back to the academy. After Yun Chujio returned to the Tianyuan Academy, she returned to her dormitory and began to cultivate. No matter where she went, she had to rely on her own strength. Her current spiritual power was too low. Although she could challenge those of a higher level in other aspects, she was still too weak. While Yun Chujio cultivated in peace, Yin Xuecheng felt a little restless. The men he sent to kill Yun Chujio seemed to have vanished into thin air. There was no news from them at all. Could it be that Yun Chujio, that smelly girl, had killed them all? Impossible. His men were at least at the 7th level of the spirit sect. How could they not be able to defeat Yun Chujio, that weak smelly girl? Could it be that that wretched girl had someone protecting her in the dark? Could it be that the palace mistress had sent secret guards? If the palace mistress had sent a secret guard to Yun Chujio, it meant that that wretched girl's position in the palace mistress' heart was extraordinary. The palace mistress would not be angry, right? The more Yin Xuecheng thought about it, the more afraid he became. He gritted his teeth and went to see Deputy Dean Yin. Deputy Dean Yin listened to Yin Zicheng's account of what had happened. He shouted angrily, "Didn't I tell the three of you not to act rashly for the time being? Idiot! If you want to kill that little girl, you only need to do something inside the academy. Moreover, you won't be discovered by others. If you do things like this, won't you drag down the entire Yin family? Fourth Grandpa, I was wrong. I was angered to death by that damn girl. Not only did she force Su Lian and me to kneel and apologize to her during the test, she even cheated us of 200,000 high-grade spirit stones. What was even more infuriating was that she embarrassed you in public. I really couldn't stand it anymore." Yin Xuecheng did not want to be scolded by Deputy Dean Yin, so he deliberately said that he was doing it to help Deputy Dean Yin vent his anger. Chapter 1055. Wait for the show to begin. As expected, Deputy Dean Yin's tone softened when he heard Yin Zicheng's words. Since the matter has already happened, there's no point in saying anything more. In the future you should just obediently study in the academy. You don't have to worry about matters related to that little girl anymore. Just leave it to me. Fourth Grandpa, I'll listen to you. Do you think that the palace mistress will blame our Yin family? Don't worry. I've heard of the palace mistress character. Even if she has her heart set on this little girl, it's still easily swayed. Those secret guards might be the guards of the Long Wind Inn, so there's no need to worry too much, Deputy Dean Yin said in a deep voice. Yin Xuecheng felt relieved after he heard Deputy Dean Yin's words. He left Deputy Dean Yin's courtyard dejectedly. The next day, the first class of the day was Instructor Zhou's spiritual power class. Yun Chujio fiddled with the instructor's desk for a while, then returned to her seat with a smile. She gathered the 10 team leaders together and gave them a few mysterious instructions. Everyone nodded, then she returned to her seat. Not long after, Instructor Zhou walked in. The entire classroom was filled with the fragrance of food. Yun Chujio held a pig trotter in her hand and happily munched on it. He curled his lips in disdain. He originally thought that this Yun Chujio was very difficult to deal with, but now it seemed that she was just a glutton with a glib tongue. Instructor Zhou opened the lesson plan and began the lesson. The lesson was as obscure and difficult to understand as usual. As a result, many students began to ask questions. Instructor Zhou felt very annoyed and the words of disdain slipped out of his mouth. It's not that I want to say this, but the students of your Huang class are not ordinary. You can't even understand such simple and easy-to-understand content. You're trash, extremely stupid. How can a class like you compare to the other 3 classes? In a few months, you will all be eliminated from the year-end competition. It is important to know one's own limits. With your low aptitude, you shouldn't have entered the Tianyuan Academy. You have brought the overall standard of the Tianyuan Academy to a lower level. Humph. With your limited comprehension abilities, you will never be able to learn how to solidify spirit energy in this lifetime. A bunch of trash. It's a shame that you're still alive. Why didn't you hang yourself at the entrance of the disciplinary department the last time? It's better if all of you trash just died. The Huang class students all gnashed their teeth in anger. However, Yun Chujio had previously instructed them not to talk back to Instructor Zhou. Therefore, although they were all furious, they still listened obediently and no one dared to refute him. Instructor Zhou felt very proud in his heart. They were just a bunch of trash. They did not dare to make a sound when he scolded them like that. Deputy Dean Yin was too careful. These trash would not be able to achieve anything. After the class was over, Instructor Zhou left triumphantly. The students of the Huang class exploded. Class monitor, that Instructor Zhou is too much. Are we just going to endure it? Yes, class monitor, Instructor Zhou's actions are getting more and more out of hand. He usually just gives unclear lectures and now he's starting to speak ill of us in our face. Let's go to the disciplinary department to protest this. Class monitor, hurry up and make a decision. We have to chase Instructor Zhou out. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. Don't worry, your class monitor already has a good idea. I promise to make Instructor Zhou suffer. The Huang class members were extremely confident in Yun Chujio. When they heard what Yun Chujio said, they were instantly relieved. If the class monitor said so, then she would definitely do it. They just had to wait for the show to begin. Chapter 1056. Let's listen to something interesting. At noon, the canteen of Tianyuan Academy was usually very lively. There were no other canteens in Tianyuan Academy, so almost all the students and instructors would eat at the same place. Instructor Zhou and a few of Deputy Dean Yin's trusted aides sat together. Ever since Ma Minghua and Qi Qing were fired, he had become Deputy Dean Yin's favored aide, which made him feel full of himself. Brother Zhou, it is said that the first-grade Huang class students have average aptitudes. You have already taught them 20 days of worth of classes. What do you think? One of the instructors asked casually. Instructor Zhou curled his lips. In my opinion, that bunch of trash has sullied the reputation of our Tianyuan Academy. They have no qualifications to enter Tianyuan Academy at all. The other instructors at the same table looked at each other. They felt that some things should be kept to themselves, but why did this person just say it out loud? The instructor who asked the question quickly made a silent gesture. Instructor Zhou, be careful with your words. Although the effects of the medicine had subsided a little, Instructor Zhou was still in a half-excited state. He said arrogantly, "What's there to be afraid of? I even dared to say that in front of them. That bunch of trash could only listen obediently. They are trash to begin with, why would they be afraid of the truth?" The people sitting at the same table frowned. They felt that Instructor Zhou was a little too arrogant. He would get into trouble sooner or later if he kept speaking his mind like that. At that moment, someone saw a little girl standing on the table. She knocked on a large copper basin and shouted, "Everyone! Everyone quiet down. There's no point in everyone eating anymore. Instead, let's listen to something interesting. Are you interested?" Everyone was stunned. Then they remembered what happened at the disciplinary department. That Yun Chujio was extraordinarily bold. Could it be that she was going to do something drastic this time? Everyone's eyes immediately flashed with the light of gossip. They began to jeer. "Yes. We are interested. Junior Yun, please tell us." "Yes, we were just feeling bored." "Junior Yun, go ahead and say it. We are all listening." Yun Chujio looked in the direction of Instructor Zhou. Instructor Zhou's heart inexplicably trembled, and a very ominous feeling rose in his heart. Yun Chujio knocked on the copper basin, then she said clearly, "What I want to play is a lesson recorded by the recording stone. Everyone must be patient. I heard that this instructor is recognized by our Tianyuan Academy as an instructor with a relatively high teaching standard, so everyone will not be disappointed. Moreover, there is some very explosive content at the back, so everyone must be patient. Chapter 1057. Had to get rid of him. As soon as Yun Chujio finished her sentence, the onlookers started to jeer. Listen. We want to listen. Junior Yun, continue playing. Yes, we heard that Instructor Zhou's spiritual energy lessons are simple and easy to understand. We regret not having the chance to attend his classes. Junior Yun, hurry up. We still have lessons in the afternoon. Hurry up and continue playing. The students of Tianyuan Academy usually cultivated if they had no classes to attend. They wanted nothing more than to have some fun, so they started to jeer one after another. Instructor Zhou wanted to go forward and stop Yun Chujio, but he was blocked by those students and instructors, whether intentionally or not. He was unable to get close to Yun Chujio's table for a while. Instructor Zhou's voice continued to be heard, and the spectators all whispered to one another. They had all taken spiritual energy lessons before, so they could easily tell that something was wrong. This level of teaching was relatively high. What kind of bullshit was he talking about? It was originally very simple, but he had beaten around the bush to make it sound more complicated. Also, some of the terms he used were rarely seen. It would be a miracle if a first-year freshman could understand them. The crowd quickly understood Instructor Zhou's intentions. He clearly tried to mislead his students. That was too much. When they heard what Instructor Zhou said later in the recording, everyone immediately exploded. That Instructor Zhou was too arrogant. No matter how bad the student's aptitude was in the Huang class as an instructor, you should not insult the students like that. Such a person was not worthy of being an instructor. Instructor Zhou's face flushed red. At that moment, the effects of the irritant powder in his body had completely dissipated. He shouted in exasperation, Yun Chujio, this thing of yours is a forgery. I've never said such things. The students of the Huang class immediately refused to accept it. Fuck. We've tolerated you for a long time. Now that the evidence is conclusive, you still refuse to admit it. Do you still have any sense of shame? I'm willing to testify. Everything the recording stone recorded is true. That is what Instructor Zhou said when he was giving us a spiritual energy lesson this morning. Right. I'm also willing to testify. Every time in class, Instructor Zhou is very impatient. He doesn't answer our questions and even ridicules us. I'm willing to swear an oath. If these words weren't spoken by Instructor Zhou and if I lied, he'll be struck by lightning. I'm also willing. The students of the Huang class were filled with righteous indignation. If Instructor Zhou was not replaced, our Huang class would not be doing well. At that time, during the mid-year competition, we would be eliminated, so we had to get rid of him. When the onlookers saw that the students of the Huang class even swore on their inner demons, they were even more certain that the recording stone was real. In that case, Instructor Zhou had gone too far. He clearly misled the students. Yun Chujio put away the recording stone, then her small face turned stiff. Instructors, students, I believe that with your intelligence and wisdom, you have already understood Instructor Zhou's sinister intentions. He just wants to delay the progress of our Huang class. His intentions are extremely sinister. I admit that our Huang class might not be as talented as the students of the other three classes, but we all entered the exam together fairly, so what right do we have to be treated like this? Instructor Zhou, as an instructor, you intentionally misled other people's children. Do you still deserve to be called an instructor? Instructor Zhou had originally thought that the students of the Huang class would feel inferior and give up on themselves if they did not understand the spiritual energy class. They would not have suspected that they had been misled by him. Who would have thought that there would be such a weirdo among them? She had actually used a recording stone to record the contents of the lesson. Moreover, he had said so many inappropriate words today. It was likely things would not go well for him. Instructor Zhou thought for a while, then he shouted with a fierce expression, "What do you know about teaching? It is precisely because your qualifications are not high that I have changed my teaching methods. I'm not trying to provoke you. I'm trying to stimulate your potential. You don't know what's good for you." After Instructor Zhou finished speaking, he flicked his sleeves and left, heading straight for Deputy Dean Yin's study. He knew that if he did not think of a way out of that situation, he would definitely be fired. Chapter 1058. Looking for the dean. When Yun Chujio saw that Instructor Zhou had left, she blinked her eyes. Instructor Zhou must have called for reinforcements, so she had to be ahead of him. Otherwise, if she did not finish him off soon, she would be in trouble instead. When Yun Chujio thought of that, she jumped down from the table and said to the students of the Huang class, "You guys continue to eat. I'm going out for a stroll." Before everyone could react, Yun Chujio had already disappeared like a rabbit. Everyone could not help but click their tongues in wonder. This little girl's spiritual power was low, but they didn't expect her movement technique to be so fast. She had disappeared so quickly. Where did she go? At the time, Yun Chujio had already arrived outside Dean Huangfu's courtyard. He was also fearless. She did not even consider whether Dean Huangfu would meet a student of the Huang class so casually. Yun Chujio hopped outside Dean Huangfu's courtyard and a burly guard stopped Yun Chujio. "Brother guard, please inform him that the first year's Huang class, Yun Chujio, is requesting to meet the dean. Tell him she says that it has something to do with the rise and fall of Tianyuan Academy." Yun Chujio's small face was very serious. The guard was shocked by Yun Chujio's words and serious expression. "Wait a moment here." After a short while the guard walked out. "Yun Chujio, the dean wants you to go in." Yun Chujio smiled at the guard. "Okay, thank you, brother guard." The guard thought to himself, sometimes you have to have some tricks up your sleeve. If it were not for her words, the guard would not have informed the dean and he would not have agreed to meet a first-year student like her. Yun Chujio hopped into the courtyard. Although it was not very big, the interior was very elegant. Yun Chujio followed the direction of the guard and walked to the outside of Dean Huangfu's study. After Yun Chujio knocked on the door a few times, Dean Huangfu's voice came from inside. "Come in." Yun Chujio pushed the door open and entered. She saw Dean Huangfu sitting behind the desk and she hurriedly bowed. "Greetings, Dean." Dean Huangfu nodded. "I heard that you have something important to report to me regarding the rise and fall of Tianyuan Academy?" "That's right, Dean, I'm not exaggerating." "What kind of place is our Tianyuan Academy?" "It's a place that teaches and educates people. If someone intentionally misleads people's children, do you think this is a major matter that concerns the rise and fall of our Tianyuan Academy?" "Oh, intentionally misleading people's children? What's going on?" Dean Huangfu frowned. Yun Chujio told him everything about Instructor Zhou and handed the recording stone to Dean Huangfu. "Dean, if you feel that the evidence I provided is not reliable, you can send someone to secretly investigate. Instructor Zhou has ulterior motives." It had already been more than 20 days since the start of the semester, and the other 3 classes' students had already learned most of the lessons regarding the materialization of spiritual power. Our Huang class also has good students, and yet many of our students cannot understand a thing he taught us to this day. When it's time for examinations, our Huang class results would not be good, and he would give an excuse saying that our qualifications were too low. That bastard is too sinister and despicable. "Sir Dean, I had already exposed Instructor Zhou's ugly behavior in the cafeteria just now. He shamelessly said that it was to motivate us and then left in a hurry with his tail between his legs. I always felt that this matter could only be completely resolved by you, so I thickened my skin and came to look for you. I hope you won't blame me." Yun Chujio's small face was full of emotions. One moment she was furious, the next moment she looked pitiful. Chapter 1059. The little devil wants to learn beast taming. Yun Chujio, you may go back. I will send someone to deal with this matter immediately. Dean Huangfu thought to himself that it would be a pity if this little girl did not report something like that. Instructor Zhou was really detestable. It was fine if he usually formed a group for personal gain, but he made a joke about the student's future. He deserved to be punished. After she thanked Dean Huangfu, Yun Chujio hopped out of Dean Huangfu's courtyard. It was unknown how Dean Huangfu had negotiated with Deputy Dean Yin. In any case, in less than 2 days, Instructor Zhou was fired. The new person to teach the Huang class was Instructor Jisha. In fact, the other 3 classes instructors of the Spirit Energy class had their instructors in charge teach them their Spiritual Power class. Only the Huang class was assigned to Instructor Zhou. The students of the Huang class were very uncertain at the beginning. Could Instructor Jisha be able to do it? Not only was he sloppy, but he could not be seen all day long. If it were not for the class monitor, their Huang class would be like a child without a mother. Unexpectedly, when Instructor Jisha taught them, he was more than 100 times better than Instructor Zhou. Not only was his lectures deep and simple, but he was also very vivid in his descriptions. Everyone immediately felt like they had found some treasure. Yun Chujio was puzzled. How did Instructor Ji Sha, who had such a high standard of lecture, end up in such a miserable state? Yun Chujio counted with her fingers. If she went to the Spirit Beast Garden again today, she would not have to go again in the future. Thus, she hopped to the Spirit Beast Garden. After Yun Chujio had cleaned the bear house, she praised the 8 barbaric bears and then hopped to the vermilion-beaked long-feathered crane's beast house. A small part of the tail feathers of the vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes had already grown back. They were now very obedient, afraid that Yun Chujio would cause trouble for them again. Little babies, today is the last time I will help you clean the beast house. In the future there will be very few opportunities for us to meet. Don't miss me too much. Yun Chujio said after she cleaned the vermilion-beaked long-feather crane's beast house. After they listened to her parting words, the vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes barely held back the urge to sing a song. That little devil was finally going to leave. They could finally return to the days where they were free. Their feathers were finally safe. Why aren't you saying anything? Are you missing me already? Don't worry, there will be a beast taming class in a few days. When that time comes, I will come and play with you. Yun Chujio said with a smile. Was this not the 3rd grade's instructor Qian? It seemed that old man Huangfu was quite stingy. To save money, one employee had to do several jobs. In fact, Yun Chujio had wronged Dean Huangfu. Among the 5 techniques of cultivators, beast taming was relatively useless. Moreover, very few people could cultivate their beast taming skills to a high level. Therefore, despite the Tianyuan Academy's generous treatment, they only managed to recruit a few beast taming masters. Instructor Qian took on both the 1st and 3rd grade beast taming classes. Instructor Qian had a very deep impression of Yun Chujio. After he went back, he carefully thought about the matter of the crane group's tail feathers being plucked. He felt that it was not Wu Heng who did it. On the contrary, this little girl was a more likely suspect, so he was very curious, how did this little girl at the 1st level of the spirit sect deal with an entire group of cranes? After all, there were more than 20 level 16 demonic birds in there. Instructor Qian now saw that Yun Chujio had chosen to take the beast taming class, so he paid more attention to her. He was ready to observe what special abilities she had. Instructor Qian looked around at everyone, then he said, beast taming has always been regarded as the most useless subject among the 5 arts of cultivators. It isn't. The reason why everyone feels that beast taming isn't very useful is that their beast taming art hasn't been cultivated to a certain level. If they cultivated to a certain level, even 10,000 beasts will submit to their will, and it will be much more powerful than the other 4 arts. When Feng Ming and the other 2 heard Instructor Qian say this, they cursed in their hearts. Junior sister little Jiao of ours does not have any knowledge on beast taming, yet she can still make all sorts of beasts submit to her. Chapter 1061. Simple and crude methods. Yun Chujio did not think so. Back in the Elixir Valley, those demonic beasts had no choice but to listen to her commands. Otherwise, how could she possibly command them? It would be different if she had learned the beast taming technique. When the time came, she only needed to lure a group of demonic beasts with the strange grass. She could assume direct control of them to fight her enemies. Thinking of such a scene touched her. It was a simple and crude method, the type she liked the most. Yun Chujio's eyes sparkled and Feng Ming and the other 2 inexplicably shivered. Every time junior sister little Jiao had that expression, she would stare at something or someone. It seemed she had picked her next victim. Instructor Qian continued, although the power of the beast taming technique is astonishing, it is not easy to master. Not only do you need to work hard, but you also need to have a certain amount of talent and affinity with demonic beast. Therefore, if you don't have full confidence in your other abilities, you can use the beast taming technique as a supplementary subject, and then choose another cultivator's 5 techniques as an elective course. Yun Chujio ridiculed him in her heart. Instructor Qian was really honest. After hearing what you said, most of the students here would probably give up. Sure enough, after they heard what Instructor Qian said, more than half of the students showed hesitation on their faces. Yin Sulian said proudly, the students of our Tian class are naturally quite talented. Some of the students from the Huang class should give up now to avoid wasting everyone's time and resources. Yun Chujio frowned and did not say anything. It's just a clown who spoke after all. Sooner or later she will teach Yin Sulian a lesson. Seeing that Yun Chujio had stayed silent, Yin Sulian felt that she felt guilty and did not dare to say anything. The expression on her face became even more smug. Because your spiritual power is low now, these demon beasts are too difficult for you. So in the future beast taming class, you should try to control demon beast eggs first. Instructor Chen glanced at Yin Sulian and snorted in his heart. No matter how talented they were, it was useless when one had an attitude like that. Such students were the definition of stupidity. Demon beast eggs? Instructor Chen, do these demon beast eggs have spiritual intelligence? A student asked in confusion. Demon beast eggs naturally don't have spiritual intelligence yet when they are just laid. However, demon beast eggs that are about to hatch will have developed some spiritual intelligence. Moreover, they are stronger than newborn baby beast. They won't be harmed if you accidentally end up torturing them while you learn. Moreover, it will also strengthen their spiritual sense. Instructor Chen explained. Everyone finally understood why Instructor Chen had chosen demonic beast eggs as their training subject. Yun Chuju scoffed in her heart, damn, humans really are amazing. These demonic beasts were going to be tortured before it was even born. Everyone followed Instructor Chen outside to a courtyard. An instructor who was responsible for guarding the courtyard unlocked it and Instructor Chen let everyone in. There were several small sheds in the courtyard. Almost every small shed was set up with an array formation. It was basically a spirit gathering array. Occasionally, some sheds were also set up with a formation to control the cold or heat, to simulate the living environment of these demon beasts. Yun Chuju looked at the eggs of all sizes and instantly, images of food appeared in her mind. Scrambled eggs, steamed eggs and preserved eggs. She wiped the saliva that had not even flowed at the edge of her mouth and complained in her heart. Why were these demon beasts born from eggs instead of embryos? The eggs of those large demon beasts were enough for a person to eat for several months. Instructor Chen brought everyone to the front of a shed. Then he said, "These are the eggs of the vermilion-beaked long-feather crane. Today I will first teach you how to establish a connection with the spiritual sense of the demon beast. Don't be impatient. Generally speaking, it takes about 3 months of practice to succeed." Chapter 1062. Demon Beast Egg Riot. After Instructor Chen finished speaking, he began to teach everyone how to establish contact with the spiritual sense of demon beasts. Instructor Qian's explanation was simple and easy to understand. However, when everyone tried doing it, they realized that it was not the case at all. Due to the limited number of demon beast eggs, everyone had to practice in batches. The first batch of students practiced for a long time and left with depressed expressions. No matter how they tried, the monster eggs did not react. Yin Sulian said unhappily, "Instructor Qian, don't tell me these monster eggs have no intelligence at all? Otherwise, why don't they have any reaction at all?" Instructor Qian frowned. "I have already told you before, don't think of achieving it in one go. It is impossible to succeed without thousands of practice sessions. In the future, you will practice how to establish a connection with them in the beast taming class." Some people lost interest in beast taming techniques after they heard that. It was really boring to practice on an egg for several months. After seeing the way some of the students reacted, Instructor Chen shook his head slightly. If they can't even overcome such a small obstacle, they are not suitable to practice beast taming techniques in the first place. Yun Chujia was last to go. She was bored as she waited, so she jumped to the front of the other small shed to observe the demon beast eggs curiously. "Strange grass, since you can attract demon beasts, do you think you can attract demon beast eggs too?" Yun Chujio asked the strange grass in her dantian curiously. Strange grass waved at her with disdain. Then the whole yard erupted into chaos. Almost all the demon beast eggs that had suddenly gained sentience and tried their best to attack the array trying to escape. The ones affected the most were the students who were still inside as they tried to establish contact. The demon beast eggs suddenly flew up and caught them off guard. Yin Xuecheng was the most unfortunate one. He was hit by a demon beast egg on the bridge of his nose. Immediately, his face was covered in blood and he was left in a very sorry state. Everyone was stunned at first, then they shouted in panic, "Have the demon beast eggs gone crazy? Why are they going berserk? It's too scary." "Strange grass. You idiot. I'm just asking you who told you to do it immediately. Stop right now." Yun Chujio knew that she was in trouble. She was afraid that the demon beast egg would charge at her, so she quickly asked Strange Grass to stop. Strange Grass swayed proudly as if to prove that the demon beast eggs could not escape from its grasp. However, it still stopped emitting the smell that made the demon beasts go crazy. The demon beast eggs frantically searched for the source of the fragrance. Unexpectedly, the fragrance suddenly stopped and disappeared. The violent demon beast eggs gradually quieted down. The dozens of demon beast eggs that had flown out of the shed were also picked up by Instructor Qian and the instructor guarding the courtyard. Xuecheng covered his nose and cursed loudly. Are these freaking demon beast eggs crazy? Is the array formation here just for decoration? My nose has been broken. The instructor in charge had a very ugly expression. No matter who it was that scolded them like that, he would not feel happy. He replied unhappily, "Student, you should watch your words. If the array formation was just for decoration, those demon beast eggs would have rushed out long ago. Moreover, why were you the only one who was injured when the other students were not? Could it be that you were the cause of the demon beast eggs going berserk?" Xuecheng said exasperatedly, "How could I cause the anger of the demon beast eggs? I just followed Instructor Qian's instructions to establish a connection with these demon beast eggs." Instructor Qian said indifferently, "Xuecheng, it was just an accident. Why aren't you apologizing to Instructor Du?" Chapter 1063. The approaching Wu Yun. Xuecheng unwillingly apologized to the instructor. Although Instructor Du was very angry, he nodded on account of Instructor Qian. The matter was considered resolved. Instructor Qian used his spiritual sense to establish a connection with one of the demon beast eggs and asked why it was agitated just now. To protect its food, the demon beast egg was afraid that others would eat the fragrant thing, so it lied and hid the real reason. It only said that it was suddenly agitated. Instructor Qian asked a few other demon beast eggs, but they all gave similar answers. Instructor Qian frowned and said to Instructor Du, "Instructor Du, I don't know what the reason is for these demon beast eggs to suddenly go berserk. They seem to just suddenly feel agitated." Instructor Du also frowned. The demon beasts are agitated either because they have something that attracts them, or because there are extremely powerful demon beasts nearby, or because they have been struck by lightning or earth dragons. I'll report this to Instructor Wu and have him investigate thoroughly. Instructor Qian, you can make up for today's beast taming class another day. Instructor Qian also felt that it was unusual. He nodded and said to the students, "Today's beast taming class will be postponed to tomorrow afternoon. All of you are free to leave. I still have some matters to attend to here." The students were also quite frightened by the demon beast egg riot just now. When they heard Instructor Qian's words, those who did not have any objections all left. Yun Chujio felt guilty for what had happened. "Oh God, I didn't do it on purpose. I just asked," but who knew that that idiot Strange Grass would really suddenly entice those demon beast eggs with its scent. While Yun Chujio blamed herself, the sky strangely turned dark. Yun Chujio suddenly had a bad premonition. But her spiritual power had shown signs of a breakthrough recently. Could it be that old bastard Tian Dao had sent heavenly lightning clouds after her? If that was the case, then it would be terrible. She might accidentally injure others, or even worse, the fact that she was not afraid of being struck by lightning might be exposed. Who knows, she might attract some other trouble if that secret got out. What should she do now? The clouds in the sky grew thicker and thicker. The immense pressure made people feel very downcast. Yun Chujio gritted her teeth. There was only one place that was most suitable for her now. As she thought of what to do, Yun Chujio hurriedly said to Feng Ming and the other two, "I have something to do. I'll be leaving first." Yun Chujio started to run. Everyone only had time to see an afterimage of her. Sulian said disdainfully, "Humph. I guess she's afraid after hearing Instructor Wu say that. Not only is she a good-for-nothing, but she's also a coward." Feng Ming could not hold it in anymore. He said coldly, "Sulian, don't forget. If it weren't for our junior sister Little Jiu, you wouldn't even have passed the third round of the test. It's fine if you aren't grateful, but you still keep slandering junior sister Little Jiu. You really are a scoundrel. Don't worry, our junior sister Little Jiu will show you what a true genius is sooner or later." Sulian pursed her lips. "Genius? More like a fool." Only the trash of the Azure Mystic Continent would think that Yun Chujio is a genius, right? You guys just wait to be eliminated in the mid-year competition. Second Machine is right. The four of you are not qualified to enter the Tian Yuan Academy in the first place. You were just lucky. Just wait to be eliminated. That Yun Chujio only knows how to sensationalize things all day long. She doesn't have any real ability. I heard that their Huang class can barely understand the basics of the solidification of spiritual power. When the time comes, the 50 people who will be eliminated might all be from the Huang class. Chapter 1064. The dumbfounded Dean Feng Ming and the dozens of people from the Huang class were furious when they heard Yin Cilian's words. When they wanted to argue with her, the pressure in the sky became even more intense. It was hard for them to even breathe, let alone argue. They quickly dispersed. Feng Ming and the other two vaguely guessed that junior sister Little Jio was about to break through. The heavenly lightning clouds were meant to go after her. Where would she go? Could she have gone back to the dormitory? Yun Chujio got out of the spirit beast garden and went straight to Dean Huangfu's courtyard. In a short while she ran to the outside of Dean Huangfu's courtyard. The guard on duty was still the same burly guard from earlier. Big brother guard. Hurry up. Someone is going to die. Let me in quickly. Yun Chujio's small face was full of anxiety. The guard was shocked and thought to himself, why does this little girl always make things sound so scary? The guard had hesitated when Yun Chujio continued, Brother guard, don't you think that that thick layer of clouds is a little scary? I have an urgent matter to tell the headmaster. Let me in quickly or it will be too late. The guard also felt that the sky was a little strange, so he said, wait a moment, I will go in and inform him. I'll return as soon as possible. Yun Chujio glanced at the clouds that had already caught up to her, and with a whoosh she jumped into the courtyard. It's too late. Dean, please come out quickly. It's an urgent matter. Dean Huangfu was reading in the study when he heard Yun Chujio's voice. He frowned unhappily. Why did this Yun Chujio come to my place instead of attending class? Although Dean Huangfu was displeased, he still walked out of his study. Dean, she forced her way in. I failed in my duty. The guard quickly apologized. Yun Chujio looked at the guard apologetically. Dean, please don't blame the guard. I was the one who shamelessly forced my way in. The heavenly lightning clouds are most likely here to strike me. I think your courtyard is the most suitable. You should quickly think of excuses and not let anyone in. The corners of Dean Huangfu's eyes twitched. There was no one else who could say such shameless things so confidently. He raised his head and looked at the clouds, then at Yun Chujio. He misunderstood Yun Chujio's meaning. Little girl, do you want me to help you endure the heavenly lightning? Although I can help you, you still have to carry the heavenly lightning yourself next time. Otherwise, Tian Dao will continue to come after you in the future. I can't help you every time. At that moment, the Wu Yun arrived above the dean's courtyard. A bolt of purple lightning as thick as a child's arm had already struck towards Yun Chujio. She did not have the time to explain and could only push Dean Huangfu away. I'll do it myself. Chapter 1065. I feel so comfortable. Yun Chujio had a handkerchief wrapped around her head as she hopped around the courtyard. She looked around as if she were just a stroll after a meal. Yun Chujio, what are you doing? Dean Huangfu asked after he regained his senses. Dean, I'm observing where the hole will be when I get struck by the lightning. Do you want to build a pond in the courtyard? We'll get the heavenly lightning to help you dig one. Yun Chujio saw that Dean Huangfu's courtyard was very elegant. If it were struck by the heavenly lightning and was riddled with holes, he would definitely look for her to settle the score. Dean Huangfu was so angry that he was twitched. Did this little girl's brain get kicked by a demon beast? What nonsense was she talking about? Why are you thinking of digging a pond for me instead of thinking about how to save your life? Yun Chujio saw that Dean Huangfu's livid face and thought that this old man was most likely narrow-minded. Forget it, she would just choose the empty space on the eastern side. Thus, Yun Chujio hopped onto the empty space on the eastern side of the courtyard and sat down cross-legged, as she waited to be struck by lightning. At that moment, the second bolt of heavenly lightning had already flown towards her. Dean Huangfu thought to himself, I told you not to show off. Let's see how you will deal with this second bolt of heavenly lightning. This bolt of heavenly lightning will definitely make you grimace with pain. A moment later, Dean Huangfu was still in a daze. He saw that little girl still sitting there leisurely, and she even giggled at him as if nothing had happened. Dean Huangfu felt that there was something wrong with his eyes. Even if he had been struck by such a thick heavenly lightning bolt, he would not have been completely unharmed. Dean Huangfu rubbed his eyes and looked carefully. That's right, that little girl was not injured at all. Moreover, there were no fluctuations of spirit energy on her body. This meant that she had even not used a defensive spirit tool to withstand it. She had withstood the heavenly lightning using her own abilities. How was this possible? Perhaps the heavenly thunder root spirit was more resistant to lightning? He would have to wait and see later. He reckoned that even if there were 10 or 8 more heavenly lightning strikes, she would end up half dead. Boom, boom. The heavenly lightning struck continuously, and soon, a deep pit was formed on the ground. At first, Dean Huangfu could still see Yun Chujia's small head, but as the pit grew deeper he could no longer see anything at all. Yun Chujio, how are you doing? Dean Huangfu shouted at the top of his voice. I'm fine. I haven't been struck in a long time. I feel so comfortable. Yun Chujia's smug voice came from the hole. Dean Huangfu's eyes twitched. Comfortable? Are you kidding me? How could being struck by lightning be described as comfortable? Yun Chuju, don't try to be brave. If you can't hold on any longer, ask this old man for help. Dean Huangfu offered. The heavenly thunder root spirit gave her better endurance against lightning strikes compared to ordinary people. Although it had withstood 10 bolts of lightning, it would definitely not be able to withstand 20. Alright, thank you, Dean. If I can't hold on any longer, I will ask you for help. Yun Chujia's beaming voice came from the deep pit. Dean Huangfu was dumbfounded. This little girl was probably the only one who could be so happy after being struck by lightning, right? Boom, boom. Another wave of dense lightning struck her. Yun Chujia's singing voice occasionally drifted out from the deep pit. Dean Huangfu could vaguely hear lyrics like, I'm really happy today. Dean Huangfu felt that he had hallucinated. He pinched his thigh hard and the pain almost made him cry out. Heavens! This was real. This little girl had been struck by more than 20 bolts of lightning and was still fine? This was too unbelievable. Dean Huangfu raised his head to take a look. The clouds in the sky were still very thick. It was estimated that they would keep at it for some time. Could the little girl withstand it? After an hour of repeated lightning strikes, Yun Chujia was still unharmed. 2 hours later she flew out from the deep pit and changed places. 4 hours later Yun Chujio still had a look of enjoyment on her face. 10 hours later Dean Huangfu's had been filled with multiple pits. Yun Chujio touched her nose and said, Dean, you have seen it too. This Wu Yun is not that strong. Why don't I change places next time? I don't think there is any space in your courtyard anymore. Do as you wish. Dean Huangfu went from being initially shocked to being in disbelief to being shocked again. At that moment he was utterly dumbfounded. The Wu Yun in the sky was even more dumbfounded than Dean Huangfu. It was not the same Wu Yun in the flaming desert. At that moment, its morale had been completely crushed by Yun Chujio. When did such a monster appear in the Tianyuan continent? How could it not be killed? How was this possible? It had already struck for 10 hours, how was she still alive and kicking? Could it be that it was not a real cloud created by heaven? Chapter 1067. Wu Yun venting its anger. The strange phenomenon in Dean Huangfu's courtyard attracted the attention of the entire Tianyuan Academy. Even the cultivators and demon beasts within a radius of several hundred li paid attention to it. Heavens, such dense heavenly lightning. Could it be that a rare treasure or a rare beast had appeared? That could not be right. Even if a rare treasure or a rare beast appeared, there would at most be a few heavenly lightning bolts. What the hell was that lightning bolt that had struck for more than 6 hours? Could it be that the Wu Yun had gone crazy? Some teachers and students were afraid of the might of the heavenly lightning and stood at a distance to observe. Only Deputy Dean Yin wanted to know what was going on in the courtyard. As he tried to make his way in, he did not expect to be stopped by Dean Huangfu's guards. Deputy Dean Yin, There is an order or prevent anyone from entering the courtyard. Not even you. Deputy Dean Yin snorted coldly and stood not far away to observe. That old fogey Huangfu Zhongheng must have some unspeakable secrets. Otherwise, why would he not allow anyone to enter in broad daylight? To be able to attract so much heavenly lightning, it must be something extraordinary. I must find a way to see what he was up to. Recently he had lost a few helpers consecutively. It seemed that this old fogey Huangfu was going to make a move on him. He could not just sit around and await his death. He had to think of a way to bring him down. The more Deputy Dean Yin thought about it, the more frustrated he became. Thus, before he knew it, he had paced around outside the courtyard. At that moment, Yun Chujio felt very comfortable in the deep pit. She replenished her spirit energy while also replenishing her body. She smiled as she chewed on a roasted chicken drumstick. On top of her head stood a black bird. It opened its possessed eyes wide and helped Yun Chujio resist the lightning strikes. It had one short wing on his waist and the other pointed at the sky. Because he was afraid that Dean Huangfu would find out, this fellow could only use its body language to provoke the Wu Yun. The Wu Yun in the sky had nowhere to vent his frustration. Now that he saw an ugly bird daring to provoke him, he was so angry that lightning strike after lightning strike struck towards little black bird. Wu Yun looked down proudly. After these 10 lightning strikes, there would be nothing left of you. If you dare to challenge me, I'll send you to your grave. Who would have thought that the ugly bird would arrogantly flap its 2 short wings and fly a small circle in the deep pit? Not only was it completely fine, but it was also even more lively than before. Wu Yun felt that he had suffered a critical hit of 10,000 points. Fuck, it was fine if that little devil could not be killed. Why could it not even kill this ugly bird? Could it be that its heavenly lightning was really just an inferior facsimile? To verify the power of the heavenly lightning, Wu Yun glanced down and saw a person pacing around outside the courtyard. It was annoyed to look at him, so he casually struck him with a heavenly lightning bolt. Deputy Dean Yin was thinking of countermeasures, but he did not expect to win the grand prize. A purple heavenly lightning bolt as thick as a child's arm flew towards him with all its heavenly might. Even in his dreams, Deputy Dean Yin did not expect the heavenly lightning to vent its anger on him. By the time he reacted, it was already too late. Fortunately, he had a defensive spirit weapon on him which blocked the heavenly lightning. The Wu Yun in the sky saw that the heavenly lightning he had used could not hurt anyone, and became even more depressed. So he threw another heavenly lightning bolt at Deputy Dean Yin. Deputy Dean Yin was completely stunned. In a moment of desperation, he had no choice but to use his defensive spirit tool to block the heavenly lightning bolt again. The second heavenly lightning bolt did not do much damage to him either. The Wu Yun in the sky grew even angrier this time. Damn it, I can't believe this. I can't kill that pervert or that ugly bird, and now I can't even hurt an old man. Boom, boom. Bolts heavenly lightning after another struck down towards Deputy Dean Yin. Chapter 1068. Must have encountered a fake Wu Yun. Deputy Dean Yin was so depressed that he was about to vomit blood. Who had he offended? He was just here to watch the show, and yet he was about to be struck by lightning? After 5 bolts of heavenly lightning, the defensive spiritual artifact on his body shattered, and he could only use his spiritual power to form a spiritual energy barrier to resist the heavenly lightning. The Wu Yun in the sky had already lost its mind due to its frustrations with Yun Chujio and Little Blackbird. It was so focused on proving the power of the heavenly lightning that it threw even stronger lightning bolts. Although Deputy Dean Yin's spiritual power was not low, he still could not withstand such a strike. 15 minutes later, Deputy Dean Yin could not hold on any longer and spat out a mouthful of blood. The Wu Yun in the sky stopped striking when he saw that Wu Yun had spat out blood. He thought to himself, it seemed that its heavenly lightning was not the problem here. It was indeed that wretched girl who was too freakish. At that moment, Yun Chujio had already eaten her fill. She lazily sat at the bottom of the deep pit and said to Wu Yun in the sky, "Are you still going to strike? If you are done, then get lost. I still have a lot of things to do." Although Dean Huangfu was already numb from Yun Chujio's monstrous performance, he still staggered when he heard Yun Chujio's words. "Little girl, what are you trying to do? You still dare to tell the heavenly lightning to get lost? You are too bold. The heavenly lightning must be furious. Aren't you asking for trouble? Dean Huangfu was extremely worried when he realized that the Wu Yun in the sky had floated away. Gone. It was gone. But, as a Wu Yun, could you still have some integrity? If I told you to scram, would you scram? Dean Huangfu felt that he must have encountered a fake Wu Yun. Yun Chujio sat on the chopping board and flew out of the deep pit. She bared her little white teeth and said, Dean, I'm really sorry for turning your courtyard into such a mess. That damn heavenly lightning only knows how to dig holes but doesn't know how to fill them. It's really lacking in quality. It's okay. We'll get someone to clean it up later. The corner of Dean Huangfu's eyes twitched. This little girl was the only one in the world who dared to openly scold the heavens. Dean, as you can see, my constitution is a little special. The reason why I chose to be struck by lightning here is that I believe that you must have a way to help me hide it. The roasted spirit potato I had just now was a thank you gift. Yun Chujio said with gratitude. Dean Huangfu was so angry that he wanted to kill her. You forced me to help you hide it and you want to give me a thank you gift? I am the dean of the Grand Tianyuan Academy. A roasted spirit potato is all I'm worth. Besides, you are definitely a troublemaker and a big one at that. I reckon that I will be struck by lightning in the future because of you. Not to mention anything else, his courtyard is going to suffer. Moreover, with such a huge commotion, how do you expect me to help you hide it? How can I hide it from everyone? Could it be that the heavenly lightning was blind and was just playing with her? Seeing that Dean Huangfu was so angry that he blew into his beard and glared at her, Yun Chujio said with a smile, Dean, are you worried about how to explain it to others? It's very simple. Just tell them that the heavenly lightning was struck by me and it will be done, won't it? Dean Huangfu felt that Yun Chujio was most likely struck dumb by the lightning. If you told others that the heavenly lightning struck you, what was the point of trying to hide it in the first place? Wasn't hiding everything unnecessary then? However, you have to polish it first. Just tell them that only 10 or so heavenly lightning bolts struck me. The rest of the heavenly lightning was just to scare me. Yun Chujio said as she took out some demon beast blood from her storage ring. She wiped it on the corner of her mouth and on her clothes. It made her look so tragic that she looked like she was already half dead. Chapter 1069. Maybe he deserves to be struck by lightning? Dean Huangfu watched as Yun Chujio went from lively to half-dead in an instant. The corners of his eyes twitched violently. This little girl was too good at this. However, would the little girl's story stand up to scrutiny? The heavenly lightning had struck her with such fury there was no hiding it. Why would it scare people for fun? Who was she kidding? Yun Chujio saw through Dean Huangfu's thoughts, then she said, Dean, I know that there are many flaws in this story, but think about it. Who would believe that I won't die from being struck by the heavenly lightning? So, even if they have any doubts, they can only speculate. Besides, the heavenly lightning is so random. Didn't it strike some other target dozens of times outside the courtyard just now as well? Yun Chujio jumped to the door and peeked out through the gap of the courtyard door. She said mysteriously, Dean, come here quickly. Something good has happened. Dean Huangfu was shocked by Yun Chujio's abnormal behavior just now, so he really did not pay attention to the movements outside. When he heard Yun Chujio's words, he went over to take a look and saw that Deputy Dean Yin was meditating nearby. His hair had been burnt off and his clothes were also covered in blood. It was obvious that his injuries were substantial. Tiske, that heavenly lightning did a good thing. This Deputy Dean Yin probably did too many wicked things. He deserved to be struck. Yun Chujio said gloatingly. Dean Huangfu coughed dryly. Little girl, let's continue the topic from before. Yun Chujio pursed her lips in her heart. That old fox might be secretly happy, but he still pretended not to be happy with me. Lord Dean, Deputy Dean Yin has been a great help to us after being struck by lightning. Initially, my story just now was not convincing enough, but now that Deputy Dean Yin had also been struck bald, it proves that the heavenly lightning was indeed mischievous. Otherwise, could it be that Deputy Dean Yin had done too many bad things and was struck for that reason instead? Dean Huangfu thought to himself, this little girl was most likely Yin Haoyu's nemesis. In just a month she had already eliminated 3 of his trusted aides. Today he was even implicated and struck by lightning. Meeting this little girl, it could only be said that Yin Haoyu was unlucky. The 2 of them had already come to a decision. Dean Huangfu removed the restriction in the courtyard. As the heavenly lightning had already stopped, many students and teachers had already gathered around the courtyard. They all eagerly waited for the courtyard door to open, wanting to know what went on inside. As the restriction lifted and the courtyard door opened, everyone finally saw the situation inside clearly. They saw that several deep pits had been created in the courtyard. A little girl was sitting cross-legged on the ground as she adjusted her breathing. The corners of her mouth and her clothes were covered in blood. It seemed that her injuries were heavy, yet Dean Huangfu was fine. But what was going on? Just as everyone was puzzled, Dean Huangfu opened his mouth and said, "You all know that Yun Chujio has the heavenly thunder root spirit. The existence of a heavenly thunder root spirit has never been tolerated by Tian Dao. The lightning strikes this time were aimed at Yun Chujio." As soon as Dean Huangfu finished speaking, whispers sounded from below. It seems that there are pros and cons to this matter. I heard that the cultivation speed of the heavenly thunder root spirit is very fast, but it will eventually be wiped out by the Tian Dao. This Yun Chujio will definitely not be able to cultivate to the great Dao. You're missing the main point, okay? That heavenly lightning strike just now lasted for more than 10 hours. How is that Yun Chujio still alive and kicking? Yeah, could it be that she withstood the lightning for 10 hours? Are you talking nonsense? Deputy Dean Yin was only struck for 15 minutes and was already heavily injured. How could she have withstood the lightning for 10 hours? What you said makes sense. Then how did she survive? Chapter 1070. Experts in acting. Dean Huangfu coughed and everyone quieted down. He braced himself and told Yun Chujio's excuse. This time the heavenly lightning that struck Yun Chujio might be a bit jumpy. Actually, there were only a dozen or so heavenly lightning bolts that struck Yun Chujio's body. I helped bear a few of them and the rest of the heavenly lightning bolts struck the empty ground. That's why there are so many deep pits. When everyone heard what Dean Huangfu said, they were skeptical. How could a Wu Yun with the power of heavenly lightning do such a childish thing? It was too unbelievable. Dean Huangfu glanced at Deputy Dean Yin, who was still recuperating. He sighed and said, "As you all have seen, Deputy Dean Yin was also struck by dozens of heavenly lightning bolts. Deputy Dean Yin has always been a straightforward person, so how could he be punished by the heavens? Therefore it can only mean that the heavenly lightning bolts this time are rather jumpy. It can be said that Yun Chujio managed to take advantage of it. Otherwise she would definitely be in deep trouble." Deputy Dean Yin could still hear Dean Huangfu's words as he adjusted his breathing. Hearing words of praise weaved in with those of derision, he was so angry that he spat out another mouthful of blood. When the crowd heard Dean Huangfu's words, they grew less skeptical. Moreover, if a strange treasure or a strange beast were to be born, the contract would definitely have an image of a contract. So, this heavenly lightning bolt was completely used to strike Yun Chujio? Some first-year students said, "This heavenly lightning should have targeted Yun Chujio. We just finished our beast taming class, and Yun Chujio suddenly ran into the dean's courtyard as if she was being chased by a dog. She must have wanted the dean to help her resist the heavenly lightning." Right. I can also prove it. At that time she said that she had something to do and ran away as if she was running for her life. Also, those demon beast eggs in the spirit beast park all went berserk. They must have sensed the arrival of the heavenly lightning. So it was all caused by this Yun Chujio. After the accounts of these students, everyone believed Dean Huangfu's words. Although there were still some who had their doubts, the vast majority of them accepted Dean Huangfu's words. Dean Huangfu heaved a sigh of relief. It had to be said that Yun Chujio understood how to manipulate people's hearts. She had managed to muddle her way through such a big matter. Dean Huangfu pointed at Feng Ming and the other two and said, "The three of you stay here. After Yun Chujio has recuperated, you are allowed to ride your swords to send Yun Chujio back to the dormitory." Feng Ming and the other two were also experts in acting. They knew that Yun Chujio was fine, but they still pretended to be very worried. Even Dean Huangfu had been deceived and he sighed in his heart. These three children were really kind-hearted. When everyone saw that there was nothing else, they all dispersed. Only Yin Xinlian and the other two, as well as some of Deputy Dean Yin's trusted aides, stayed behind to take care of Deputy Dean Yin. Dean Huangfu said a few words of concern and went back to his study room. The door to the courtyard was left open just like that in case others thought that something fishy went on inside. To prevent Deputy Dean Een from seeing right through her, Yun Chujio deliberately opened her eyes before Deputy Dean Een had finished regulating his breathing. She looked extremely weak and let Feng Ming and the other two ride their swords back to the dormitory. After they returned to the dormitory and activated an isolation array, Feng Ming asked, "Little Sister Jiao, are you all right?" Yun Chujio giggled. "Of course I'm fine. That heavenly lightning struck me very comfortably, and it even helped me teach that old bastard Deputy Dean Een a lesson. It was so satisfying." The corners of Feng Ming and the other two's eyes twitched for a moment and they finally relaxed. They thought to themselves that only a monster like junior sister little Jiao could withstand repeated lightning strikes for 10 hours. Chapter 1071. Could it be that you just want a love letter from me? Deputy Dean Een had finished adjusting his breathing and touched his head with his hand. When he noticed the black ash on his hand, his face immediately turned pale. The Een sisters and the instructors were so frightened that they did not even dare to breathe loudly. Although Deputy Dean Een had been distracted just now, he had heard Dean Huangfu's words clearly. He did not believe that those heavenly lightning bolts would scare Yun Chujio for no reason. The Wu Yun must have been attracted by that smelly girl Yun Chujio. He had suffered an undeserved calamity. That smelly girl was a jinx. Ever since she entered the Tianyuan Academy, he had experienced all sorts of difficulties. He had to think of a way to kill her or it would be difficult to appease his anger. Deputy Dean Een looked into Dean Huangfu's courtyard. Sure enough, there were a few deep pits. A few guards had filled up the pits with soil, but there was nothing unusual. That old man Huangfu Zhongheng was very cunning. He might have obtained some heaven-defying treasures. Humph. However, it was going to be his sooner or later. Let's wait and see. Yun Chujio sneezed twice and mumbled, "It must be that old bastard Deputy Dean Een bad-mouthing me." That heavenly lightning was also the same. If you wanted to strike him, just do it to your heart's content. Why didn't you strike him to death? She took a bath and started to cultivate. Strength was the most important principle. Without strength, everything else would be useless. While Yun Chujio cultivated, the sound transmission talisman in her storage ring started to vibrate. After Yun Chujio sent her spirit sense to probe into it, Di Baiming's anxious voice came from inside. Little Jiao and Feng said that Tianyuan Academy was struck by the heavenly lightning for more than 10 hours. Was it you? Are you all right? Yun Chujio giggled and said, "My Prince Charming, congratulations on getting the right answer. Those lightning bolts were there to strike me. I feel very comfortable now." On the other side of the transmission talisman, the corner of Di Baiming's eyes twitched. "It's good that you're all right. However, aren't you afraid that the lightning bolts expose you?" "I'm afraid that it will attract a lot of trouble." "Hee, my Prince Charming, you've underestimated me. How can I do such a stupid thing? I've already taken care of it." Yun Chujio told Di Baiming about what had happened. Since the two of them were now in the Tianyuan continent, the voice transmission talisman could be used more often. It was very convenient. The two of them chatted for a while more, then the voice transmission talisman turned into ash due to the number of times it was used. Yun Chujio pursed her lips. This thing was too useless. It was only used for a short while, but it already broke, so she took out a new voice transmission talisman and said to Di Baiming, "Prince Charming, ask Feng to send me another 180 voice transmission talismans. This thing's lifespan is too short." On the other side, Di Baiming sighed, "Little Jiao, these voice transmission talismans are not that easy to find. In the future we should try to communicate as briefly as possible. If you have something to say, we can meet face to face. Or you can write me a letter and ask Feng to send someone to send it to me." Yun Chujio pouted. "What at Sundra? Could it be that you just want a love letter from me?" However, she blinked her eyes and her face was beamed with joy. "If I were to write a letter to the pretty boy would also reply to me. I have never received a love letter from pretty boy before. I'm looking forward to it." Therefore she hurriedly said a few words to Di Baiming. Then she took out her brush and ink to write a love letter to Di Baiming. She had written all the love letters she could think of, then she wrote the closing, "Little Jiao who loved you to the bone." She then put the love letter into her storage ring. She planned to give it to Feng in a few days and ask him to send someone to pass it to Di Baiming. Chapter 1072. Do you dare to compete with me? To act more presentable, Yun Chujio asked for a sick day off and did not go to class. In the afternoon, the students from the Huang class all brought gifts to visit Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio weakly leaned on the recliner and pretended to decline the gifts before she accepted them anyway. When the Huang class students left, she immediately jumped down from the reclining chair and opened the gifts one by one. Feng Ming and the other two were already at their wits' end. Junior sister Little Jio's acting skills were already at the pinnacle of perfection. If we did not know that she was completely fine, we would have thought that she was really half dead. TSK, I didn't expect this. I didn't expect that feigning illness was also a way to make a fortune. However, only those from the Huang class came to visit me. The number of gifts I received is really limited. I will have to think of a way to get everyone to visit me next time, especially the headmaster and instructors. The gifts they give will probably be more valuable. Yun Chujio muttered as she opened the gifts. The corners of Feng Ming and the other two's eyes twitched violently. There was no one else who was that greedy. After 3 days of recuperation, Yun Chujio was once again alive and kicking. Yun Chujio was escorted to the classroom by the students of the Huang class. On the way she met Yin Sulian and the others. Yun Chujio, you jinx. It's all because of you that my fourth grandfather was struck by lightning. You even caused the dean's courtyard to be destroyed. You still have the gall to stay in Tianyuan Academy? If I were you, I would have quit long ago. Yin Sulian said disdainfully. Get lost. If you were me, why are you so shameless? Could it be you wish to be like me? With your pig brain, unless you become a person with unparalleled wisdom like me, you'll be an idiot for the rest of your life. You want to compete with me in words? I'll torture you to death. I'll torture you to the point that you won't be able to take care of yourself. Yin Sulian had never met someone who spoke so sarcastically before. She was so angry that she almost fainted. She gritted her teeth and said, Yun Chujio, I won't argue with you. If you can, let's compete in the materialization of spiritual power. Do you dare to? I bet you don't. Trash like you and that useless instructor can't possibly learn the materialization of spiritual power without wasting at least a year. Compete in the materialization of spiritual power, huh? How do you want to do this? Yun Chujio asked lightly. It's very simple. It's a competition of whose spiritual power after materialization was stronger. 3 days later we would use the materialization of spiritual power to attack the training spirit stones. Whoever's result is better will win. The loser has to kneel on the ground and admit their mistake in front of everyone, then pay the winner 2 million upper-grade spirit stones. Do you dare compete with me? Yin Sulian was full of confidence. She felt that Yun Chujio would not dare to accept the challenge. She had already learned how to materialize spirit energy even before she joined the academy. Now she could already condense her spirit energy into a sword. Moreover, the Huang class progress had been delayed by Instructor Zhou for more than 20 days. They probably had not even learned the basics, let alone learn how to condense spirit energy into a tangible object. Feng Ming whispered from the side, Junior sister Little Jio, don't pay attention to her. She's just a clown. The Huang class students also said, Class monitor, there's no need to argue with her. Let's go, it's almost time for class. That's right, class monitor, let's go. Ignore her. Whether it was Feng Ming and the other two or the Huang class students, they all felt that they could not agree with Yin Sulian's challenge. If they did, they would lose without a doubt. Although ever since Instructor Ji Sha took over, the Huang class students felt that the spiritual power class was much easier to understand. However, it would still take at least another 2 to 3 months before they could materialize their spiritual power. Moreover, it was said that Yin Sulian herself had learned the materialization of spiritual power with her family before she joined the academy. Yun Chujio would lose without a doubt against such an opponent. Chapter 1073. The class monitor will definitely lose this time. Yin Sulian heard everyone say so, and Yun Chujio remained silent the entire time. She said proudly, Yun Chujio, are you afraid? That's right, trash like you obviously can't compare to me. If that's the case, if you meet me in the future, just get lost. What right does a piece of trash have to talk to me? What Yin Sulian did not expect was that Yun Chujio said indifferently, where will the competition be held? Junior sister Little Jio. Class monitor. Feng Ming and the other two and the Huang class members looked at Yun Chujio in disbelief. The outcome of this competition was almost predictable. Why did Yun Chujio agree to it? Was this not asking for trouble? Yin Silian was also stunned. She thought that Yun Chujio would not dare to agree to her challenge. She thought that in the future she would be able to use this to mock her, but the tables had turned. She did not expect that Yun Chujio would agree to it so recklessly. She really courted death. Since it's a competition, the more people there are to witness it, the better. Let's do it at the Tianyuan Academy's main square. Yin Silian's eyes flashed with a trace of viciousness. When the time came, she would make Yun Chujio kneel and apologize to her in front of everyone. She wanted to see if Yun Chujio still dared to stay in Tianyuan Academy in the future after she was defeated. All right. I will see you there in 3 days. Yun Chujio said calmly. Yun Chujio, you should cherish these 3 days. Your good fortune will come to an end soon. At that time, you will be the #1 trash in the Tianyuan Academy. To prevent you from not admitting your loss, let's swear on the inner demon oath. If the losing party does not honor the agreement, then their souls will be scattered and they will die a horrible death. Yin Silian said viciously. Yun Chujio smiled faintly and made the inner demon oath according to Yin Silian's words. Yin Silian also made the inner demon oath and then left with her class leader Yang. Junior sister Little Jio, you are too impulsive. That Yin Silian learned the materialization of spiritual power when she was in the family. We have only learned it for less than a month. How can we beat her? Feng Ming said worriedly. Yes, class monitor. It's not that we want to admit defeat, but right now it's like hitting a rock with an egg when you compete with Yin Silian in the materialization of spiritual power. The words have already been said. What should we do now? Class monitor, why don't we go back on our words? It's better than kneeling and admitting our mistakes in the future. Class monitor, why don't you pretend to be sick when the time comes? Drag it out for as many days as you can. Yun Chujio smiled faintly. Don't worry. Since I dared to make the promise to her, I naturally have a way to defeat her. When everyone heard Yun Chujio's words, they immediately asked in surprise, Class monitor, could it be that you can already materialize your spiritual power? Yun Chujio shook her head. Not yet. I should be able to do it in 3 days. Everyone, what kind of joke was that? Not now, but in 3 days. Do you think the materialization of spiritual power is a joke? It's over. The class monitor will definitely lose this time. When the time comes, she will kneel in front of everyone and apologize to Yin Silian. In the future, she will not be able to raise her head in Tianyuan Academy. He was too impulsive. After Instructor Ji Sha received the news, he specially asked Yun Chujio to stay back after the spiritual power class. With a slightly gloomy expression, he said, Yun Chujio, I always thought that you were quite smart. Why are you so reckless this time? That Yin Silian can already materialize a treasure sword. What about you? Our Huang class will still need at least another 2 months of lessons before we can materialize anything. Aren't you just asking for trouble? Forget it. I'll go find Mo Hanshuan and ask him to find Yin Silian to cancel the competition. Yun Chujio felt a warmth in her heart. She naturally knew what Ji Sha would face if he went to look for Mo Hanshuan. He would definitely be further ridiculed and despised by Mo Hanshuan. However, he still decided to do so. That meant that he was truly considerate of her situation. The few questions that were occasionally asked were also questions about her own opinions. It was not that they did not understand the content of the lecture. Could it be that even the heavenly thunder root spirit was so perverse? The sky gradually turned dark. Although Yun Chujio could still go on, when she heard that Instructor Ji Sha's voice had already started to become hoarse, she took the initiative to say, Instructor Ji Sha, let's call it a day. I'll go back and understand and digest everything you taught me today. Tomorrow morning, I'll take a leave of absence from the beast taming class. You continue to teach me. I reckon that after tomorrow afternoon's lesson, things will be more or less explained clearly. Instructor Ji Sha was indeed a little tired. He nodded and said, I'll go and inform Instructor Qian. We'll continue the class here in the morning tomorrow. On the way back to the dormitory, Little Black Bird asked curiously, Master, if you can't learn how to materialize spiritual power by then, how are you going to deal with that bitch Insulian? Yunchujio said faintly, it's very simple. Use the concealment talisman to beat her up. Beat her up until she can't get out of bed for 10 days to half a month. The competition will naturally be unable to proceed. Little black bird's beaks were unable to close for some time. Chapter 1075. The unfortunate tables and chairs. The three animals in the spirit beast pouch looked at each other and shivered. Alright, that was indeed in line with their black-hearted master's way of doing things. That little bitch should just pray for her own good fortune. The next day Yunchujio did not attend the beast taming class as expected. It was an elective class anyway, so Instructor Qian turned a blind eye to it. After receiving the news from Instructor Jisha, he happily approved the request. Moreover, he had also heard about the bet between Yunchujio and Insulian. He was very curious about how Yunchujio would accept the challenge. Could it be that she could really learn the materialization of spiritual power within 3 days? When it was close to noon, Instructor Jisha finished the rest of the lessons. He then sighed and said, I have already taught the most basic low-level materialization of spiritual power. Only by mastering the basics can you master the more advanced methods. Now try to materialize the spiritual power in your body and see if you succeed. Although Instructor Jisha said so, he did not have much hope in his heart. Materialization of spiritual power was not something that could be done in a day. It had to be practiced thousands of times before it could be done. After all, there were still 2 days left. It was impossible for Yunchujio to master the materialization of spiritual power, let alone defeat Insulian. Yunchujio blinked her eyes and tried to materialize the spiritual power in her body according to what Instructor Jisha had taught her. Unfortunately, what she ended up doing was still fire purple lightning bolts. Several sets of tables and chairs in the classroom were charred. The corner of Instructor Jisha's eyes twitched violently. This time, not only did she not learn how to materialize spiritual power, but she also had to compensate for the expenses of the school's tables and chairs. Yunchujio laughed dryly. Instructor Jisha, I'd better return to my own courtyard to practice. Here are 500 upper-grade spirit stones. Please help me pass this to the Miscellaneous Affairs Department as compensation. Instructor Jisha sighed again. If you still can't succeed tomorrow night, send me a message. I'll go look for Mo Honshu and don't try to be brave. Instructor Jisha, don't worry. I'll definitely succeed. Yunchujio said confidently, adding in her heart, even if I don't succeed, I'll have Insulian cancel the competition on her own initiative. Instructor Jisha waved his hand, thinking about how to tell Mo Honshuan to make him agree to let Insulian give up on the competition. Chapter 1076. Di Baiming's reminder. Feng Ming and the other two were speechless. It's already so late, why aren't you in a hurry? Besides, where did your confidence come from? There are less than 2 days left, can you really learn to materialize spiritual power? Moreover, even if you manage to learn it, can its power compare to Insulian's? Feng Ming and the other two were extremely worried, but they also knew that Yunchujio had a plan, so they could only give her a little encouragement. When Yunchujio had returned to the dormitory, the three of them gathered to discuss a solution. What should we do? Junior sister little Jio is going to lose this time. If that happens, the lost spirit stones will be easy to deal with, but kneeling and admitting her mistake on the spot is too difficult to accept. Feng Ming said with a worried expression. Shi Xian sighed. Yes, if junior sister little Jio does that, then she won't be able to stand firm in the Tianyuan Academy in the future. Fuck. If we lose, well, quit school. We can't let junior sister little Jiu suffer such humiliation. Gung Yi said through gritted teeth. Shi Xian thought for a moment, then said, why don't we go to Instructor Jisha? Maybe he'll think of a way out of this. Feng Ming and Gung Yi did not have any other good ideas, so they could only agree with Shi Xian's opinion. The three of them went to Instructor Jisha and explained the purpose of their visit. Jisha smiled bitterly. I've already spoken to Yunchujio. If she can't succeed in her practice before dinner tomorrow, I'll go to Mo Hanshuan and ask him to think of a way to get In Sulian to cancel the competition. The three heard Ji Sha's words and felt a little more at ease. However, there was still a glimmer of hope in their hearts. Junior sister little Gio had created miracles many times. Perhaps she could do it this time as well. If that was the case, they could only hope for the best. At that moment, Yun Chujio had hacked her courtyard into a mess. The principle and steps of materializing spiritual power were not wrong, so why did it not succeed? What exactly was the problem? Yun Chujio sat on the reclining chair dejectedly. She turned her grief and anger into an appetite. She munched on a roast chicken and then got up to continue her practice. Although she was a little out of tune, she was so serious that even she was afraid of herself. She had practiced non-stop for the entire night. Unfortunately, when the sun rose again, Yun Chujio was still unable to materialize her spiritual power. What she came out of her palms was still purple lightning. Yun Chujio touched her chin. Could it be that she had no choice but to beat up that little bitch In Sulian? It was indeed a low-level plan. If things went wrong, she would be discovered by others. When that happened, it would be even more troublesome. She could only use it as a last resort. However, why could she still not materialize her spiritual power? Yun Chujio had no other choice, so she sent the voice transmission talisman to Di Baiming. However, this fellow didn't have much hope. Yun Chujio took out her voice transmission talisman and said, "Prince Charming, I've practiced materializing my spiritual power hundreds of times, but I still haven't succeeded. Can you help me analyze what exactly I did wrong?" Not long after, the voice transmission talisman started to tremble. Materialization of spiritual power can't be rushed. Didn't you just learn it for a month? You'll succeed if you practice slowly. Yun Chujio curled her lips. I knew it. It's useless to ask the pretty boy. It seems that she had no choice but to use the concealment talisman to beat up that little bitch In Sulian. At that moment, the sound transmission talisman trembled again. Little Gio, did you get into trouble again? If you are anxious to learn the materialization of spiritual power, you can refer to your situation in the water. Although those purple lightning bolts didn't form a physical body in the water, they already have a shallow spiritual intelligence. That is a characteristic of high-level spiritual power materialization techniques. Yun Chujio jumped in front of the three silly munchkins and said with her eyes wide open, "What did you say just now? Say it again." The three silly munchkins were so scared that they almost choked on the rabbit meat in their mouths. Little Black Bird said timidly, "Master, we were really hungry, that's why we stole the food. Please don't be angry." Little Black Rat and Little Red also said, "Yes, Master, we didn't eat lunch, that's why we stole the food. We won't do it again." It was not that these three silly munchkins were usually timid, but they were really scared by Yun Chujio. If that black-hearted master rolled her eyes and came up with a bad idea, we won't be able to beat her. I'm not blaming you for stealing food. Quickly repeat what you just said. I seem to have found an inspiration. Yun Chujio touched her nose and thought to herself, am I that scary? The three silly munchkins finally felt relieved and replayed the scene from before. Yun Chujio clapped her hands. Yes. That's what Little Blackbird said. One is not enough to eat two. The reason why the lightning that I struck can only be materialized with the help of the water element must be because my spiritual power isn't high enough. If I reduce the size of the lightning every time I use my spiritual power and increase the density, I will definitely be able to materialize successfully. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.